and pray to God my internet can handle everything that I'm trying to throw at it.
I believe. Is it live? How do I know? Wait, okay.
um, it's a good question considering the live screen just disappeared on me. Uh,
Oh, I see it.
okay, apparently I am live, but why did that screen disappear? What?
Okay, it's working.
uh, the live screen just Oh, okay. Cool. Let's let's do this. Do.
I'm gonna share it to my page.
Awesome. It's probably a good idea. So, start this off. I figure give some sort of introduction to about both of us, just so there's like some semblance of understanding who we are. Um, so, Sarah, why don't you start us off in that category?
Cool. I'm Sarah. I'm also known as Sorairo-Days. I'm a cosplayer, but I'm also a photographer. I started dabbling in photography like a couple years after I started cosplaying, just because I wanted to meet more people, and here I am today.
And I'm Andrew or Vontography. I've trying to think when I started shooting. I think I started shooting cosplay photography in 2012, but it's really hazy because like it's hard to know when it was when I stopped doing just random hallway shots and like actually started shooting. Um, but I think it was 2012. Yeah, that's kind of I've that's where we're at. So let's I guess let's just jump right into our first photo here. Um, for the sake of convenience, I've had this go in alphabetical order. So if you're submitted and you're looking to see when you're gonna show up, just know that it's alphabetical. So let's jump right into our first image. No, this one would be Allison's. Sarah, if you're opening the image on your screen as well.
Hang on, my internet's being
Yeah,
a little slow. Okay, I
cool.
got it.
Yeah. So this one's this first one is from Allison or Oki Cosby. She's I don't know whether she somehow self-portraited this one or she may have likely gotten her boyfriend to shoot this one.
I was
But
gonna ask if this was a self-portrait of
yeah,
some kind.
I don't know for certain. Um, but I know that like pretty much all the creative elements that went into it were Allison's.
Nice.
I think maybe just everything except like pressing the shutter button was pretty much her. So yeah, so look at it for a second. So right off the bat, I really like the overall tone of the image. Like the colors are nice and moody, um, and the just kind of the light that's falling on her face is just really pleasant. Um, and kind of how bright her face is compared to how dark the kind of that grass. I think really lends to a strong focal point to the image that I dig. To Sorry, I just want to mute other messengers so things so people aren't trying to message me in the middle of all this. I where my first kind of thought comes into this is the framing. Um, I kind of feel like having her head in the exact center of the frame kind of ends up making the image look a little too stale. Not that it's bad, but just that kind of makes the overall composition just feel kind of odd.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the crop is a little awkward. I almost wish she was maybe moved up like 5 inches so we could also see more of her body.
Yeah,
Uh,
like if it, I agree that shift upwards and then maybe just have her head just like ever so slightly more up in the frame as well, so that it's like perfectly balanced.
Yeah, it has like a very good like almost golden ratio thing going on, like that swirly graph thing that sometimes you'll see photographers sharing on their pages.
Mm,
But I think just nudging her up, and I think actually even zooming out a bit more. I think the other thing that's a little awkward is her hand crop and that the fact that her other arm is missing. I think it would have been nice because I can kind of see her hand actually now that I'm looking at it more on
yeah.
the bottom in the middle, and I kind of wish I could see more of that.
Mm.
Um, then I think it'd be like super solid. Actually, I think I love laying down poses. I'm a sucker for them,
Oh
and
yeah.
somehow
No, they
Allison looks freaking amazing in it. Like I don't know how she doesn't have like 20,000 chins like I do when I'm laying down. So like this
yeah.
this could be a dope shot. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still really awesome,
Yeah.
but I think just like zooming out a little bit because the crop is very close and just moving her up a little bit
Mm.
would have been really awesome.
Yeah. Also agree with you on the hands. I like her left hand kind of coming across her body, but then you
Mm-hmm.
just see the tiniest bit of her right hand, and I wish I saw more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, I kind of don't like. I really like this the string light coming up and like across the frame towards the top. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how I feel about the string light coming like the part that's coming above her head and then around over her chest. I just when you can actually see like the wire, it kind of feels less magical. um,
Yeah, I think it's another one of those instances where I almost wish there was more of the string light because right now it's
yeah,
kind of just teasing one strand. And I
yeah,
think what I know what they were going for. They kind of
mm,
wanted that like ethereal, like fairy,
yeah,
like environmental effect, but I think having more of those lights would have helped.
for sure.
'Cause right now she's kind of like this one awkward string, and I'm like, I really wish there were more. I think it would have been really cool if they were somehow laced into the grass, so then some of the grass and the leaves were picking up the reflections from these little lights
Yeah.
too.
I'm not sure if I fully agree with that because I like how dark those corners are. They really
Yeah, I do
focus you.
too.
Um, either way, I'd like to like almost feel like this if you could have the top have similar bokeh to the bottom.
Hmm.
Um, that those lights bokeh out, I think would look really great.
Yeah.
But I think overall, like I'm kind of surprised with how good the lighting looks on her face with this image. Like
It's
I'm
perfect.
yeah, it's great looking. Um, any other thoughts on this one, or you want to move on to the next one?
I think my only additional thought I have is the actual like bokeh effect that is applied as like a textural element over the
Hmm.
top. I almost feel like it's actually kind of distracting. Right now my eye is kind of like struggling to like look at the bokeh first or look at Allison's face first, and I mean I feel like someone's like face like they are the focal point.
Yeah,
But here, I think because like a lot of the brighter like bokeh textures are like on not on her face, but so close to it, I almost my eye is kind of struggling like a little bit. That's like a really nitpicky thing. Um,
yeah.
but I think when you're doing like, I mean, I don't know if this is real bokeh. I'm gonna
I
assume that this is a texture that was
I actually think
overlaid.
it's real.
Oh, it's the light. It's
Yeah,
the string
like
light, isn't it?
yeah.
Oh crap. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, well, either way, I feel like it's almost a little too much. I mean, I almost thought it was fake until I looked at the image a little bit closer and I
Yeah.
realized that these string of lights are coming up towards the camera.
Mm.
Um, that's my, it's like I said, that's like a really, really nitpicky thing, but I think
Yeah.
because they are so heavily on the left and then her as the subject is so heavily on the right, it's kind
Mm.
of a little conflict, like battling for attention, sort
Yeah.
of.
Um, I think the last thought I would have is the blacks like around her chest and like kind of by her shoulder. I know it's black and it's kind of a darker scene, but those blacks are just totally crushed. Um,
Hmm.
and you kind of there's no detail in there, and I'd like to see some of this, at least it just it doesn't have to be bright. I'm not asking for it to be bright. I
Right.
just would like to see some details in there.
I agree, especially the fabrics that she chose only because I saw her making this costume.
Mm,
Her choice of fabrics were really beautiful, and it's a shame that those details were lost.
yeah,
But
yeah. But let's go on to the next image.
yay.
Okay, this one is taken by Carolyn Belge. I'm probably gonna pronounce people's names wrong. I'm sorry about that.
Me. Sorry, guys.
It is inevitable. It's going to happen. Um, let me switch on my screen. I switched in the stream, but not on my screen. That's kind of helpful to do. I think like really first impressions on looking at this image is just the overall mood is really strong. I really like the symmetry in it.
Me too.
Um,
And I like the grunge feeling that it kind of has going too.
yeah. Um, so I was gonna say here's the thing on this as symmetrical. That kind of uh gets me. Also, sorry, check this. So it's symmetrical, but when you're being symmetrical, gosh, maybe this is just me being like OCD, but it bothers me ever so slightly that the
I know you're
cosplayer
saying.
is shifted just a tiny bit, and then the framing on the door is shifted a little bit. You could fix the framing of the door just by cropping the image in a little bit. Like that's actually not too hard. I mean, it's not hard at all. Um,
Hmm.
and it actually centers the cosplayer more, but kind of decenters the really makes it noticeable that the that kind of door isn't perfectly centered behind her then. Um,
Yeah, it's like another solution because I've encountered this before too, where I've trying to get a symmetrical shot, but also because sometimes when you're at a con or even when you're on like an on location shoot, you're kind of like in that like mode of like rushing, not rushing, but like you're in a
oh
hurry to
yeah.
get everything that you want.
Mm,
And so what you think on camera is good, but then you upload it and you're like, oh shit, this is not this is not perfectly symmetrical. So what I do sometimes is that I'll duplicate the image and then flip it and then
mm,
mask it the side of the door that I like. So if you're not able, because sometimes even when you crop in, the symmetry still isn't perfect. And I
yeah.
feel like because the cosplayer is slightly shifted over to their left a little bit more than we would want for a symmetrical photo, I think flipping the image and then masking out the side that you don't want to get that perfectly symmetrical door is another good solution.
Yeah. Um, I totally. I think actually the lighting in this image is so feels so kind of straight on. It's like coming from the left a little bit, but it's still fairly straight on. That if you did flip the image, I think it would not read as incorrect.
Right. Or a little dodging would help to help balance that out
Yeah,
too.
for sure. Um, otherwise, like this image is really strong.
Really dope. Like the amount of details you were able to capture on camera from their actual costume is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I can see like all the details like in the armor. I can tell like what kind of fabric they've used. I mean, I
Mm,
can even see like the individual teeth on the zippers. I love crap like that. So the fact that this is so clear in this photo is
yeah.
so awesome.
Yeah, I think I have a tendency to keep my camera pretty much stop down aperture wise as low as possible all the
Mhm.
time. And I don't know how far stop down this was, but I feel like just the clarity screams like that you were shooting stopped up maybe a little bit, and it just really paid off in this image.
I agree.
Another thing though is I feel like the cosplayer's face is maybe just a hair too bright.
In the
Um,
highlights.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like dropping those down, and it doesn't even need to be much, but just those highlights are kind of screaming a bit too much to me.
Hmm.
Um, I kind of like, I almost think they're brighter than
Then
the
the eyes.
arm. Yeah, they're brighter than the eyes, but I think they're also brighter than the armor below. I'm gonna check real quick
Yeah.
in Photoshop. No, I lied about that. Um, but
Optical illusion.
either way, it's just kind of um, I popped this open in Photoshop and took like a threshold layer, and like you can see where those actually, you know what, I can screen share this. Um, so
Nice.
take a look at this and threshold and where those highlights end up being, and there's all of it's concentrated kind of in this the face. So I just think bringing that down a little bit could end up helping. Um, just trying to think. I otherwise there's not much else to say on this image. I feel like the colors are excellent. The kind of brown
Mhm.
and gold in the door work just so well with the overall feel of the image. So I don't know if I want um thing else there.
There's some small things I want to bring up. Again, this is just me being like really OCD about. I'm a freak when it comes to cleaning up my images. Um, and that's not just on the person, but like on the door.
Oh, you're gonna talk
Um,
about the same thing that I noticed, aren't you?
the white streak that's going directly through their
Yep.
head.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's something to look out for really in any photo, and that could be like even sometimes like a horizon line. Like if you're shooting someone in like the horizon line in the background's going through their head, it could just end up looking a little like, why is this person's head being pierced with this like imaginary line? Um, I So I would recommend cleaning up those types of things. Obviously, when you're shooting in like an environment that you can't control, you can't always clean things up. Like sometimes you can get like trash or like things that you're physically able to do, but this is clearly on a building and you don't want to harm something like that. But this is an easy thing you can take out in Photoshop. So it's like the little line going through their head, and then I don't know what this extra like little circular thing is
Yeah,
on the right.
it's you know what I think it is? I think it's a peephole. Like,
Oh, is it? Oh, it is. Like,
yeah.
yeah, okay, it's like that's totally functional, but like in a photo that looks kind of odd.
Yeah, I know,
Um,
especially with how like rustic everything is in this. It kind of looks old, and then you got that
right.
kind of like peephole. It took me a while
Yeah,
to figure out what it
people
was
thing.
as well, but like, yeah.
It's just something that like I get really anal about. Like even in photos, like if I'm shooting in a hallway at like Katsucon, for example, like in the basement by the pool, like I'll shop out like pictures and like outlets and things that I might find distracting from the cosplayer because they're the focal point, right? And
Mm.
I want to try to draw as much attention to them as opposed to like being distracted by things in the environment. And especially these two things, like the white line and that little peephole thing, are so close to the model themselves that it's um they're just like extra little things that I would recommend taking out.
Cool.
Again,
Well,
that's like super anal, I'm sorry.
oh no, I mean that's the point of this, I guess. Like I mean, I think we're both fairly anal about those kind of things. So,
Hmm.
I mean, of course we're going to give that kind of feedback. So,
I just don't want. I just is like. I know it seems like really nitpicky, but like it really comes down, in my opinion, to those really small details, like those really small like
mhm.
retouches, um, that I think sometimes are ignored in a lot of photos. But those are the things that I think can help bring a photo home.
Yeah, like
Um,
I do feel that we can end up talking about the negatives or what have you, even on like really good photos for a while. But it's just like this image is like in my mind probably 95% maybe higher there. Like
Oh yeah.
it's good. Like it's that extra 5% that it can improve, but like you already have a really damn good
You
image.
already have a solid image. The model looks great. The outfit's amazing. The location is so fitting for Loki's character. Um, did I say lighting? I can't remember. Lighting is dope. I love the lighting. I'm a sucker for natural light, so this looks great, and it's super balanced.
Mm,
I mean, again, we're just being nitpicky at this
yeah,
point, but
for sure.
it's solid.
Ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna switch over to Diego's image here.
Ooh, Diego.
Uh,
What's up, homie?
hmm. Why don't you start this one off, Sarah? Start it off the last two.
Okay, I'm gonna get to it in my computer first. Cool. So Diego, my friend. I think this photo is really freaking awesome. When you sent it to me at first, I was like, "Oh my god, this is so different from all of your other stuff, but I love it." Like I love the environment and like the lighting effects that you were able to achieve. I think you shot with gels. I'm not the best lighting expert because as many of you know, I don't shoot with lights. Um, but I like the mood that you were able to achieve with that. Um, and I really like the cosplayer's pose. I don't really know a lot about this series, but I feel like I'm getting like a lot of like pain and anguish from this character, not just from like the crazy red effects that are coming out of their eyeball, but just from like their body language. And the angle of the cosplayer themselves is really flattering. I don't know, I just think overall, I think this is a really nice dynamic
Yeah,
shot
yeah,
for a pose that isn't super dynamic, if that makes any sense.
yeah. The background of this shot is really awesome. Like,
Love
I don't. I kind of did some looking to see if it was. It, I almost for a little bit thought it might have been photoshopped in, but I can't really tell upon zooming in. So I think it is, but either way, if I'm like really second guessing it that much, then
I'm gonna assume
good
that
job.
it's not just based on the wig hairs that are
I
perfectly blended in with everything else.
Yeah, I would.
Like,
Yeah,
there's
agreed.
no way. Or if it is, I'm really freaking impressed, and you need to teach me how to do
Yeah.
that because
So there's a little bit that's down by their right leg that gives me cause for pause there. It's kind
Mm.
of like a bit more of a line that looks like it could have been cut out, but I love how the screen we're just getting close up of your forehead now, Sarah.
Sorry, I was like, I want to look closer.
Either way, doesn't matter. I think it looks really good, even if it is shopped.
I love the color grading that you did. The red and the blue are just they're so
Mhm.
solid. It really lends itself to feeling kind of like a high editorial like color grading style where you have like blue in the shadows and like more yellows in the highlights.
So
Really dig that.
So I'm gonna go into kind of the first thing that throws me off about this image,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that the shadows on the cosplayer
Mm-hmm.
end up being darker than
In the
the
background.
shadows in the background,
Yeah.
and that feels really, really weird to me, especially considering like we're at like this dark night nighttime scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of my biggest cause to kind
Of
of
it being cut out.
no. Like we're gonna move past the cutout thing. That it just kind of makes it feel a little too bright. Like we've got this really moody um, scene, and I mean, I don't mind if you're like if someone's pushing up the shadows of their images and kind of getting that like kind of more matte effect to their image, but when it's also not when it's not being done really to the cosplayer as well, it feels a little odd.
Hmm.
Um, so either I think bring those shadows up in a similar way on the cosplayer, um, or bring lower them in the background.
Yeah.
Um, and I think next what I kind of bothers me is the background being blurred out looks really awesome almost everywhere in this image, except, and I'm gonna screen share right above the cosplayer's head. This, oops, I want to grab a brush to highlight. Damn it! This little blob here, just, gosh, it throws me off. Like, I'm sure it's like a bright sign, but like the fact that we've got these little nice kind of balls of light across the image, and then the one closest to the cosplayer
Right.
is this kind of oblong shape. I also
Yeah. I'm gonna like piggyback on what we were saying earlier about taking out things that are distracting, even if they're supposed to be there. I think
yeah
this is a good example of maybe either toning down that highlight or just removing it altogether.
yeah I think I don't know what this red thing is in the background either.
Can you zoom in?
Yeah, so I don't know what this red thing in the background is here, but honestly, I think my biggest thing would be Photoshop that entire piece out, and then while you're at it, take care of those wig hairs.
I see, yeah.
But
Or blurring the edges or having it blend out a little more.
or darken. I honestly think if you made that kind of mixed it with the night sky there, which I don't think would be overly hard to do. I think it gives more breathing room to the cosplayer.
Agreed.
Because like, it's funny because like I noticed that kind of oblong bokeh right away, but I didn't notice kind of this like red. I almost thought the red blob behind was part of like the editing effect to the eye, but
I think it is.
no, I don't. I'm gonna zoom back in. Like this, there's like
I think the red
whoops,
like,
this going
effect
up.
is picking up other artifacts in the background. That's what I think.
So, if you see my screen, like I'm gonna highlight this shape right here is not part of the editing. That was something in the background. Like you can tell, it's just got it's bokeh in a similar way. Um, and man, I just think photoshopping it out would end up helping.
Yeah. Or just blending it a bit more.
Yeah. And I know
there is like that stark shape.
Yeah, I know you ended up really being positive about the overall toning of the image, and for the most part, I agree. But I think the skin tone is where that gets kind of lost for me.
Yeah, it's like they don't quite mesh, but it's like
So-
almost there.
Yeah, so here's the thing. If you look at the skin tone on the cosplayer's face, it's very pink. But then you look at the shoulder and it's very like an orangey yellow tone. And that discrepancy makes both the face and the shoulder look wrong.
Yep.
Like they both look kind of almost like a borderline like sickly color, which maybe for this character could work.
Right.
I really don't know. But yeah, I think overall I would like them to be, if you're gonna go one way or the other to kind of make it look sickly, which I don't know if it was intentional or not, I would make them the same side of the spectrum though.
I agree.
Yeah. The other thing is I don't know how I feel about this. I think it kind of works in this image because of this, but there's something that I like to call alien eyes, which I see a lot of people do, which is where an eye has been retouched so far that it's like been brightened so much it doesn't look natural. And I get like that that was the point of the not the glowing red eye, but the other eye in this
The
image.
blue one, yeah.
Um, but I still think it's a bit too far.
It's a bit too hot when it
Yeah,
comes to how bright it's being. Because right now, I know it's not as bright as like the highlights or the lights on the buildings in the background, but it's so bright that it almost like looks like it could be. Um, Again, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's accurate for this character because like their red eyes going kind of crazy. But I do agree. I do see like what you call the alien eye a
yeah,
lot, and I appreciate when photographers bring out the color in context because even though they seem really vibrant in real life, when they show up in photos, they're just kind of like not there. So I
yeah,
do appreciate like the act of trying to bring that forward, but I think in this case, maybe like you said, it's just a little too much, just like
yeah.
a little bit.
Overall, like just a hair too far. Like overall though, like compositionally and like the overall mood of the photo though is really good.
Stellar. Yeah,
Okay, let's keep this rolling here.
let's do it.
Okay, this next one we're gonna go on to is Henry's shot. Don't know the cosplayer for this one.
No, sorry.
Oh well. Um, wait till you get it. Let me know when you have that image up, Sarah.
I got it. Got it now.
Awesome. And talk about a disparity in terms of like this image to the last compared to the last one.
I know it's like we have like the dark and grungy like city night, and then now we have like this nice like oh my god, I'm in the sunlight. The light is here.
Mm,
It's awesome.
yeah.
So, you want me to start?
Go for it. If you got
Okay.
thoughts, I'm still kind of
So,
digesting.
when I
So
Okay. Well, when I first opened this image, the first thing that I really liked was how well lit her face is and like actually how flattering it is to her like her physical being. I don't know. I just feel like overall she's lit really really well and the way that you had her face and look up a little bit like off camera, I think looks really flattering on her. Um I just feel like however you directed her or them, it looks I just think it looks really good. Like she just looks really good in this photo.
I
Um
100% agree.
yeah, and she looks comfortable. She doesn't look awkward. I just I feel like something that I'd like to see more is like this is like me going on a tangent, but just like photographers like directing their models because sometimes like as a cosplayer, I don't know what looks good on camera. I mean, like I understand that I've had my it's like I know it's like being in front of the camera a lot should have you like know these things, but like sometimes you really have no freaking idea how you look. Do I have 10,000 chins? Is my can you see up my nose or my not or like my eyes do they look dead? Like I don't know. And I just feel like from this image that a lot of good direction was given to the cosplayer and they just
Mm.
look really really nice.
Yeah, I will second that. Probably the only thing that throws me off with the posing of this in this image is the hands.
Yes,
But
the baseball hands.
yeah, but like super minor. Like, and I kind of think it's almost like it ends up being that way because of her umbrella, the
The
stick
stick
coming.
being so short.
Yeah, it's really short, so there's not a lot of room that she can like comfortably put her hands on, which is absolutely not the fault of the photographers and directing. So while it bothers me in a very minor level, I'd totally give that a pass. Like,
Mhm.
um, but so and you went off on a tangent. Here's my little tangent. Dutch angles. Um, my thought is on Dutch angle. Dutch angles are okay if you have a reason to do a Dutch angle. Otherwise, it just feels like you've tilted your camera because tilting is more creative. And
Yep.
I bought into that when I was starting shooting, but the more I've done it and the more I've seen it, it's just feels like cheap and easy way to try and be like, like, oh, I'm taking a picture straight up and down. Oh, it's boring. Ooh, but I've tilted. Now it's creative. Like, I don't
Yeah.
I don't buy it. Like, if you have like compositional elements that play off of that angle, then awesome. And while this isn't what I'd call a severe Dutch angle, I just like it makes me feel like the image is leaning. Like I end up tilting my head a little bit when I'm looking at this. She's like leaning forward. You don't like have a strong horizon line to kind of signify that
Yeah.
that it is like a Dutch angle, but like you do get the feeling of she's just kind of leaning forward because of the angle. So I would have much preferred just to see this straight up and down.
Agreed.
Um, but yeah, like I'm also a little unsure how I feel about the flare in this image. Um, I kind of feel like the shadows on her face end up getting a little bit too blown out compared to like the shadows lower in the picture. So I'd almost like think like a little bit of dodging and burning darken her hair up just a little bit. Um, especially around like I feel like the strongest part is it makes it feel like there's less detail on her face, and if you're showing a face in an image, I feel like that is the almost always the focal point of your image.
Hmm.
And like if I compare it to her skirt, which there is a ton of detail in, and then I look back
Right.
up at her face and there's not, it doesn't feel like there is as much detail. But I think that's just purely because of the light coming in and flaring. Um,
Hmm.
so like I think if you dodge and burned a little bit, that could really kind of help pop her face out of this image as well.
Yeah, I agree. Because she definitely lacks the range of darks and lights that the
Mm.
clothing and like even that the umbrella has.
Mm.
I want to go back to the background a little bit. I feel like, not I feel like, I think the background is a bit blown out, in
Yeah.
my opinion. Like the whites on the right side of the image are just, they are, I almost want to say that they're white.
Hmm.
um,
Oh, they
I feel
probably
like
are.
they're, yeah, it just is very, again, it's almost kind of like it's like, am I gonna look at the outfit or am I gonna look at this like bright like section on the right? Um,
They're not.
Again, this just goes back to the
Yeah.
dodging and burning thing. I think just just knocking out some of those highlights a bit so they're just not as intense. Really helpful.
Yeah. They're not exactly white, but they're like the value is like 250 and up. Like it's
There we go.
pretty much white.
Pretty much white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um the I don't know if that actually bothers me all that much in this image.
Hmm.
Um I mean, I wouldn't call the background a strong point of this image, but it just kind of it it makes this feel like this shot is more casual though. Like, and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily know if that's a bad thing. It's just a different kind of shot. It makes it feel like, you know, just like I said, more casual. And I think I like it, and that's why while it's not a overly attractive background, it doesn't especially bother me.
No, I mean it doesn't distract me by
Yeah.
any means.
Um, I would I would say maybe the only thing that bothers me here is the white light pole.
Oh god, I didn't want to say it, but I'm on the same page.
Yeah, like it's we're getting really nitpicky. I kind of follow it from the bottom of the light pole and then it veers to the left and it takes my eye out of the image. I know we're getting really kind of detailed in that, but because it's all bokeh out and there's really no strong textures, like removing that should be pretty darn easy. Um,
Healing patch tool or healing band-aid tool. Yeah, that.
yeah, the
Healing brush
healing
tool.
brush tool. Come
Got
on,
it, guys.
Sarah.
I got it, guys. Um,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Here. Hope that helps.
A lot of tools. But like you were saying, because the background is so blurry, it is actually really easy to take out because
Mhm.
there's less of the program to be like distracted by when it's trying to mathematically figure out what to replace the image with the healing brush tool. Because healing brush tool is essentially like content aware fill. It like just takes information from your photo and replaces it with something else.
Mhm.
But
Um,
again, nitpicky, but it'd be
uh,
cool if the light pole like
yeah.
kind of wasn't there. But again,
I'm
that's
gonna get into something super nitpicky on this one,
cool.
and I'm gonna screen share for this. So zooming in on her face,
Boy.
you can see just these. There's a corner there, and there's a bit here, and I wonder if I'm not a cosplayer, but I've seen this done, so I kind of think it is the tape that kind of pulls up on your face.
Oh, is it in the shot? I can't
Yeah.
see it.
If you zoom in on her face, like underneath that main bang that comes down, there's
Yep, I see it now.
something there, and I think that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it kind of on the other bang on the other side of her face. There's just this little corner. And at Facebook resolution, you're really not going to notice that. But it's just something that kind of like piques me and goes, what is that?
Like, what is
And
this thing peak?
and it would take like an extra like minute, if that, to Photoshop that because it's so small. So that would be my recommendation there.
I'm gonna say this from a cosplayer's perspective. I'm gonna try and not say that term like 10 million times during this live thing, but I know is I would appreciate if a photographer took that out because I feel like if I honestly that's like the first thing I do when I get photos back. I'm like, oh my god, like are my wig hairs everywhere? Can you see like my actual hair? Can you, like things that you don't think about when you're shooting. So I think just taking that extra like minute to remove those tiny little things are super appreciative. Like, let me tell you, when a photographer does that, I'm like so happy.
Yeah. I mean, obviously she doesn't want that to be visible, so like, yeah, get kind of.
You're just looking for
Yeah.
those small things.
Yeah. Okay, we spent a while on this one, so I figure let's move on to the next one.
Let's do it.
Okay. This next one is Joe. Joe Satellite.
Oh my god, it's Satellite Productions.
It's Mr. Creative himself.
Yeah, boy.
So, gosh, like immediately going into this one, just the overall dynamic nature of this shot is really awesome.
You're goddamn wizard, Joe. Whatever. It's okay. Okay.
Um,
There is one thing that kind of threw me off. Wait, do you want to go first?
No, go for it. I mean, you've got something. Go.
I feel like the crop, at least this is just me, this is my personal opinion, but I feel like there is almost a little bit too much space above her head. I almost wish it was kind of cropped in a little more, or maybe like, I mean, I understand that the cards are in there too at the top, but for some reason the photo just, I think also because of like the tall grass stuff in the background, it just feels very like bottom right heavy to me.
So I'm gonna argue the opposite. I feel it
Go
needs
for
to
it.
be zoomed out just the teeniest
Or
bit.
that. Yeah,
Um,
I don't really know which it is. I just know
Yeah.
that the crop is not quite
Yeah.
there.
Get the end of the
The
I don't
stick.
yeah, I was gonna say I don't know what to call it. Stick.
I don't know what it's called either. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Get the end of that in the frame.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think a lot of the compositional problem comes from the cosplayer's head feeling like it's in the center of the frame.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay.
I
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I think pulling this and maybe not even zooming out, but moving her just the teeniest bit to the right of this frame.
Yeah. It's like it's almost trying to be centered, but it's like not
Yeah.
centered. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard because like her body is totally on a third,
Right.
but like her head is not.
Isn't.
And
Yeah.
um yeah, like yeah. I think that's kind of where my compositional thoughts come in.
Yeah, I couldn't quite figure out what was like, you know, I couldn't quite get what was like not making me
Yeah.
100% happy with the composition or the crop or whatever you want to call it. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I overall too like this is maybe the theme of this session is while I feel like it's done well, it's
Mm-hmm.
still clear to me that the all the kind of cards are photoshopped in.
Mm-hmm.
um I mean, there's probably not too much more you can do with that. Like, I think you've done like
A stellar
a
job.
pretty darn good job. But like the
Yeah.
one that's like in the smallest one in the back kind of throws me off because I feel like it should be more blurred.
It's
And
also lighter than some of the foreground ones.
yeah,
It looks like.
it's and yeah, like you can this is something I find for myself I try to do is when you do these kind of motion blurs, you remove the grain of the image
Mm-hmm.
from those sections. And while this is hardly a grainy picture, like all photos, even like ISO 100, have that kind of like little bit of grain texture to them. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you get this thing that's kind of pristine in here, there's no grain in this blur whatsoever.
Yeah.
It can kind of pull you out just ever so slightly.
I think, I kind of want to touch on the grain aspect because I've seen this come up recently this week about like, is grain a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Does it mean your photo sucks? No, it does not.
Mm.
Um, I think in this case, I feel like grain is usually associated as a bad thing because you shot at a high ISO at night or something, and it just kind of like makes your image look lower quality. But I think grain is also a good thing because it helps add like texture back into your photo, and it also helps it look like you didn't slap like 50 beauty cam filters on your photo. Um,
Uh,
so just to just to back up what you were saying about adding grain back into an object in a photo that is given a blur effect, I think is helpful in this case because it
yeah.
helps meld it back into the image.
The other thing is that like if you're using the newest version of Photoshop, I don't know when they implemented this, but in the path blur tool, there's an option where you can click add grain, and you can
Mm-hmm.
select the percentage of grain that you're adding into an image, and like it's right there. um,
It's great. It's a
yeah.
lifesaver, honestly.
Also, also, Joe, I'm sure you already know this about this image, but it has to be said. You missed focus. You missed focus. The focus is like kind of on like the front of her hair, kind of like by her shoulder,
That
and
hair
like
thing, yeah.
and like it missed by her eyes. Like once again, it Facebook resolution, totally not a problem. But honestly,
Totally okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
what I would do is go in and I would probably over sharpen the eye, the front eye, and maybe a little bit on the lips just to try and combat a little bit because like I mean, you're not noticing about and once again, super freaking nitpicky, but like I do feel like compared to the sharpness of her hair, her eye doesn't quite feel as sharp
Yeah.
because it's not. So, coming back in and editing that, just trying to get a little extra sharpness. Maybe even just doing that for like the Facebook upload could help.
What's your favorite method for sharpening?
I'm gonna be totally honest. I don't have a favorite method.
Mhm.
I know this will is kind of like the easy way out, but like when I export from Lightroom. I do the sharpening in Lightroom.
I do too.
And then if I want selective sharpening at the end, I'll do a high pass filter on it and like use a mask and brush on the sharpened areas. That's what I would do for here. Is I'd use a high pass filter and apply a mask to it and just brush on just like that eye and a little bit of her lip to kind of combat. Okay, Joe, you already know your picture's good. Let's go on to the next one.
Wait, I just want to say, Joe, your skin retouching is thebomb.com, but you already knew that. So, want to reiterate that your skin retouching is great. You make everyone look like freaking flawless and not dead inside at a con, because I know that's how we all feel.
Okay. Next image we're going to go to is Kai's image. Let me know when you have it up, Sarah.
Get in there. Get in. Oh, nope, I went the wrong way. Got it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm there.
Crap, now I lost it, Paul.
Oh.
Alright, cool, I got it. So...
You want to start off this one?
What?
You want to start off this one?
Oh, sure. Yeah, cool. I think... and I'm sorry, my critique on this one is going to come across overly negative, and don't I'm not trying to be mean on this, but I think overall the lighting just doesn't work on this image.
Yeah.
It comes from the very first thing you've done is the key light and the gel are the same like the same exposure almost. I'd almost say what I'm reading is the key light, and the gel might actually be brighter than the key light. But that's not even necessarily what the worst part is. It's that it's coming from a low angle.
Yeah.
It just really casts a kind of an unflattering light. You've got this and honestly, when I first pulled up this image, the shadow that's cast across her chest, it took me like a half a second to realize what was going on there, because it's catching her outfit and casting up. And if you had like it straight on or at an angle, like a little bit above and downward, that weird kind of shape wouldn't be here, and it'd be far more flattering. But like, I'm gonna be totally honest, like, because it's amongst white and this the brightness of her skin and suddenly shadow, that is the very first place my eye goes in this image, is on that kind of shadowy shape on her chest.
Yeah, it's pretty, because it's like in the center. It was the first thing that I noticed too, and I wasn't really sure what it was either.
That and I feel like the light, obviously it's strobed, but the light really needed to be softened, at least for the key light in this. I mean, I'm not saying, to be clear, hard light isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, when you're shooting a character who is a bunny girl version, I don't, unless you're using it for a very specific reason, I think softening up that light would help a ton. Yeah, so I think what it comes down to is knock that, raise your key light up so it's on to her, soften that up, stop down the rim light, or it's like more like a side light. Stop that down so it's, it's filling those shadows with the color, but it's not lighting her evenly as the key. And then you'd start having a bit more of a flattering light on her. You want to jump into something on this, Sarah? I feel like I've been talking for a while.
Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to talk about the pose. I feel like that it doesn't feel like a very natural way to be fixing your bow tie. Um,
Yeah, like I kind of have to do it, and I'm like, yeah, it
I
feels
just
like you'd have your elbows down, not like up and out like that.
yeah, I get it's like I totally understand the pose that you were going for, but it's just that her hands are going the wrong way. Like they're facing up when they should be
Mm.
facing down. Um, I also feel like maybe they should have been ankle down a little bit more, so there's just like less like arm surface area
Or, or you know what?
everywhere.
I think one going up, and if the other was down, it would balance out more, and then
Yeah.
maybe it look a little less weird. But like having them both up, kind of feels like she's getting ready to do the chicken dance.
Oh my
Um,
god. No. Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things I know it's hard to catch when you're shooting, but just sometimes it's good to just take a step back and be like, is this a pose that I would do in real life? Like, how would I actually fix my bow tie? I know sometimes when I'm working with cosplayers, I'll do the pose myself. I mean, you look retarded, but like whatever, because you're gonna get a better image in the long run. But I'll end up doing the pose before I shoot it because I want to make sure that this is maybe actually a natural act that someone would do. Because in this case, no, it just feels odd, a little odd. So yeah, the pose is a little awkward
hmm.
um, for me in the arm hand placement.
Yeah. The other thing is that background.
Hmm.
Cinder blocks are just not pretty. Especially when they've got their painted cinder blocks like that. Like I've I've been the culprit of that before, trying to make those look good. I don't know if you can. They're just inherently ugly as fuck.
You want to know what I've done? I've shopped out all the lines before.
Wow. Okay, that's cheap. But here's the thing. I don't. I'm trying to figure out if you had a third light that was lighting the wall. I don't know if that's the case, or if it's just the natural light of the area. Um, but I feel like, you know, if you shifted her over on that wall, kind of, I feel like the light's falling off to the left. Move her over that way. Get your lights closer to her, so you're kind of using your principles of light to make the light fall off and the background goes darker. And I think just really, yeah, taking that background darker could end up helping a lot. Because it's just not a background I think anyone wants to see, which doesn't mean you don't have to shoot there. Oh yeah, like Kai, I see your rainy weather at ASEN comment. Yeah, ASEN sucked this year because there was no ASEN doesn't has a lot of decent places to shoot outside, but if it's raining, you're fucked.
Oh,
Um,
is this an ASAN?
yeah, I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out where the location is, but you know it's hard. It's just a back, but like even said, I think you need to take out that like power outlet,
Yep, the
like
outlet.
or move her in a position where you're not seeing that power outlet in the background because it's just not.
Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta work with what you've got, but then it's just taking that extra second to be like, how should I light this? Where should I position my model so there's the least amount of like, you know, crappy convention environments that we've all dealt with before, you know?
And I think with this shot, um, you can center her, like crop it down so she's centered.
Hmm.
There's a lot of breathing space on the right of this image,
Yeah.
and you don't need it. So, yeah. What? I was right next to the registration line in the dealers hall. Yeah, not an attractive place. That's ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, given what you had to work with, I don't blame you. But yeah, I figure let's keep on going.
I'll do it.
Okay, next one we're going to go on to is Kyoka's image.
Ooh-wee.
Let
Yoga.
me know when you have it up, Sarah.
Always going the wrong way in this folder.
Yeah, I have these open in Photoshop so I can like quickly zoom in and stuff. And like when I close
You're
the
smart.
current,
None of these are open in Photoshop for me. Next time, guys, I will be more prepared.
it's funny though because when I close it, it doesn't go to the tab I want it to ever, and I'm just
Of
like
course.
I'm like, oh, okay, you've totally shifted off. All right, so you got it, Sarah.
So actually, Yoka, she gave me kind of just like a brief like lowdown of how this was shot and kind of like what her editing approach was. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be interesting to like kind of just see what she has to say, and then we can just go from there.
Sure.
Okay, so this was shot. Oh God, this is like the most least ideal situation. This was shot during the bright, sunny time of day, so I'm assuming like noon and like early afternoon. So she had them sit in the shade so they weren't like white and blinded and like blown out. And then she said because of the shade, basically everything was dulled. So to bring out those colors, she started doing a lot of like gradient overlays to bring out more colors from their outfits and to change the tone of the image. And that's how she got to this one.
Mm-hmm. So I'm what I'm gonna go ahead and say, and this is not I'm not trying to bad talk this image, but more to say that like most of the time we're shooting it like I'd say more often than not I'm shooting at conventions and not location stuff. Mm-hmm. And most of the time a convention is never a place you would go to shoot photos. So while I 100% agree with the sentiment of like it was awful light and you had to put them in the shade, but like I feel like that's what we're almost all of the us are working with when we're at conventions, and it's just kind of what we have to deal with. Like I said, I'm not trying to like point a finger and be like, yeah, not an excuse, because I mean,
well, it's learning to adapt to your environment.
Yeah, it's just
that's the challenge of shooting natural light.
Yeah, and it's finding those spaces, and gosh, I've gotten to the point where like just as long as I can find some semblance of shade, I feel like I can make like high noon work. So I think you got the right idea.
Yeah, choosing this bamboo grove like not only fits the game perfectly, but it was a savior for your end result.
Yeah,
because you avoid.
I want to know where the hell you're like. I hope this was location, if it was at a con. I want to know what con has just random bamboo. Like,
yeah, Kyoko, tell us. I'll ask her.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, because like location wise, I think all things considered, like you made it. This is a great spot to be shooting.
Right.
It was location. Okay. She commented on.
Oh, there she is. Hello.
Yeah. So I'm gonna. I think posing wise, I think is the first thing I want to talk about with this image. It always feels a little odd to me when with a group of like one or more cosplayers or two or more cosplayers, if one of the cosplayers is making eye contact with the camera and the other isn't, sometimes you can make it work, but in this one it feels like it's throwing me off just a little bit.
Oh, is she? Oh, I thought she wasn't looking at the camera.
I feel like I don't, maybe she's not, but
I don't think she is.
Oh, maybe, you know what it is? It's the highlight that really throws me off.
The highlight. Yeah.
Okay, well maybe your posing direction is spot on and just the highlights have screwed you.
That natural light is killing you now. Yeah, I don't think she's looking at the camera.
I get the feeling that she is, but I guess that, you know, it's hard to tell, but I think you're right. She isn't looking at the camera.
I'm zoomed in pretty far.
Yeah.
Pretty far.
Yeah.
Nice skin retouching though. This is nice. Especially on a grain image, that can be hard.
Yeah.
I zoom in a lot.
There's a certain area with the posing that I feel like, Sarah, you might want to talk about, and not me.
Huh? Is it? Wait, can I? Wait, I want to make sure what I'm about to talk about is what you're talking about.
So I will talk. Yes.
Okay, I didn't want to bring it. Okay, I'm going to bring it up again. This is really nitpicky, and this is when the liquefy tool is your best friend, actually. So her chest on the left, well, I mean our right, it looks a little funny. It's just from wearing the costume and you're sitting and your arm is resting against you. I know, I've done it before. But in this case, the shape of her left breast is a little odd and a little unnatural looking. I've dealt with photos like this before too, where I've shot someone and their chest just looks a little funky because something's pushing up, you're pushing it, whatever. I would recommend just to fix it or just round it, or not round it out. Wow, sorry. Even it out a bit. That sounds wrong too. Anyway, is the liquefy tool. And I would just bring it like to the right.
There's no not weird way to talk about it, but
I know. Okay, whatever. Just bring it to the right so it looks a little more natural. Because it almost actually kind of looks like her chest was liquefied to make it whatever. But in this case, I don't think it was. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. So in this case, this is a good time to use the liquefy tool and help make your image seem more natural, which I know is kind of like against the original stigma of the liquefy tool. But I actually use it a lot to help make things look more natural in the end. So in this case, the chest for the Kagero character is a little odd. Liquefy tool. Cool, she gets it. We're done. We're done talking about boobs.
There is no not awkward way to talk about that. Yeah. But okay, let's talk about something more
not that.
Yeah. Is the color. I feel overall I don't mind the color of the image. It's not like I don't think I look at this image and go, oh, the color work looks like awesome. But but like I wouldn't say like it looks bad, but there's one section in this kind of the lower right of this image where the color just gets yellow. And
you mean the left?
Yeah, did I not say left? Lower left of this image where the color just gets like yellowy.
And
I don't know what's causing that.
Probably the gradient mapping that she did.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if that's the case.
Gradient maps are great, but sometimes you need to mask out areas where it seems unnatural.
Yeah, but like it just ends up looking really funky in that area. So like her skin ends up looking really yellow, and like the leaves, they lose that really nice kind of like purple you have in the shadows. Is gone there. One thing I really do like stylistically is I'm a sucker for foreground elements.
Yes.
And this like little leaf, like stalk of leaves coming across the top of the image is awesome. I love it. Makes this image look so much better. Like if you didn't have that, I feel like it'd feel a lot less dynamic. So yeah, I think that's awesome, and like it's subtle, but it's amazing how much I feel like it really aids to this image.
It just kind of makes it feel like you're like the moment was captured, like
it also
like
provides
in real time.
it
you know?
provides context to like you've got these bamboo shoots here, but you don't get to see any of the leaves off of them. But like
Right.
so maybe you would just read them as poles. But because you have this piece coming across, I instantly read them as bamboo, and then I put
Yeah,
together, oh, the leaves on the ground are fallen from, and like it just contextually fully brings
the whole thing
the
together.
image together, and I really like that about this image.
I agree.
Um, I think because you've put it in here, I want to quick talk about the type treatment you have going on. Um, I I don't necessarily mind it. Um, but I kind of wish instead of setting it against black, because it's so dark compared to the rest of the colors in your image, that you'd either have gone with like a dark gray or some like a darker color.
Agreed.
Um, I think it kind of would just feel a lot stronger.
Hmm.
Um, I also
Yeah, it's very stark, especially since there are no true blacks in the actual photo. I mean, maybe like part of her pants,
yeah,
probably not. It is very stark. Again, that's just a tiny thing, though.
yeah, that, and I feel like I don't, once again, don't mind it, but I feel like the choice of sans serif is not the strongest choice for this. Not that I have a problem with, or that, not sans serif, serif
Sarah.
font. You
Yeah.
were like, uh, I feel like it just like a different typeface might end up working a little bit better in this situation. I do
Yeah.
like the very bottom, the Fire Emblem Birthright section. I feel like that works really well.
Yeah, the all
Um,
caps is so elegant.
yeah, that looks really good, but like kind of the quotes, I feel like need a different, maybe a different typeface, or maybe even just a different treatment of that typeface. I don't know.
I like the elegance that the all caps has when it's at a smaller size.
Hmm.
And I think when the font is bigger, okay, this is me getting like super graphic design nerd, so
Well,
scrolled it.
context. Both Sarah and I are graphic designers, so
Yeah, and we're both, well, I'm a typography freak, so
yeah,
again, these are tiny things, but I think these, what I like, I said, I like how elegant the all caps feels because there's more contrast between like the serif themselves and the rest of the type. Uh, type letters. Oh my god, I don't know how to say this. But when it gets bigger, you kind of lose some of that contrast. So the serif almost looks a little more modern, and because Birthright is set in a very like historical period, it might be nice to have a font that is more fitting to that time period. If that makes any sense.
yeah. Okay. If you have any, don't have any other like quick comments, I think we should keep it going. I think we're
No, this is dope. Shoot me.
okay. We're next up is gonna be Kyra's shot.
Cool.
Once again, Sarah, just let me know when you have it up.
Um,
Sarah looks blankly.
this is at the beginning. Got it.
Cool.
I sees it now.
Awesome. Um, like immediately looking at this one, just overall the texture in this is awesome.
It's so good. I
Just
love it.
God, the texture that's coming off of like the chest plate, and even in his beard is awesome.
Yeah, that was like the first thing I noticed was the texture in his beard, and I was like, this is so dope.
It's nice. I'm curious. I'm gonna look real quick. Is ah oops, screwed that up. Um no, okay, never mind. Yeah, it's hard because like I feel like the lighting on the cosplayer is
Hmm.
awesome, and then I feel like the lighting in the background kind of holds this image back.
Yeah, is there like a vignette? I can't tell if the vignetting is like is was there or it was done in post.
Hmm. So
I think the vignetting is kind of throwing me off.
yeah, I think it might be natural, and it's not like a lens vignette, but like light being thrown onto a backdrop kind of vignette.
Mm. Oh, I see.
Um, and yeah, I wish one it was darker, and I
The
wish
vignette?
no, like the entirety of the background.
Oh,
Like
oh, I
I feel
see.
like it's too bright right
Hmm.
behind him. And then I feel like I wish the color was consistent across the entirety of the background. Like just having it red in that upper right corner
Hmm.
like kind of makes me go, "What? Like how does that I'm guessing what ended up happening is, that red light that was thrown onto him only hit that corner. But like this would be since it is such a sharp image along such kind of like a stark background, it would be
Hmm.
really easy to get this image so you're like darkening the background and then like applying a universal color to it.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like I'm not sure if I'd take it all to red or all to like a gray, but I know I want it darkened.
Yeah, I agree. I think he would pop more too, which
Um,
would be nice.
yeah.
One
Uh,
small thing I want to bring up. Oh, sorry.
go for it. No, I've been talking.
I think what are words? I think the photographer or the model, but I think the photographer in this case, because this guy looks like he's like touching the wall, should be moved back a bit because just a smidge of his arm is being cropped off in the
Hmm.
bottom too. I kind of wish, or just really, it's really just the right side that's being cropped off that I wish we could just see the entirety of his arm. And I think because it is such a small amount, it's not enough where the crop looks intentional to me. So I kind of wish we saw more of that. Either that meant backing up, or the model like brought up his left arm a little more, so you could see the entirety of this whatever the hell it is that he's wearing that looks so freaking cool. Um, would help.
The it's funny you mentioned that arm. I'm gonna mention the other arm. I
Or
want to see his other arm.
yeah,
Um,
that too.
but whether it's just like he has it up and it's like resting on the butt of that gun that's kind of hanging
Mhm.
off of him. Um, I just want to see it, like just a little bit of it. Kind of
Yeah,
helps. It'll help the pose.
get out of
Um,
it.
also nitpick. I feel like the red ends up being a bit too hot. Um,
On the armor or
yeah,
on his face?
on the armor and on his face.
Hmm.
Um, it because it's so hot, it ends up almost like having more of a pinkish tone than like the deep red that I think the original photograph was probably going for, or the kind of the intent of it. It still looks really good, but I think
Yeah,
if you like stop down that light like a full stop, that red will end up looking more vibrant because of it. Um,
I also think bringing like playing with the reds with a selective color layer would help too. So
mhm.
the red is like really red because right now it is pretty pink. So
I
bringing more
I think
yellow
the
into
the
it.
pinkness is actually I think yeah a little bit of yellow, but like I'm just eyedroppering it in Photoshop and it's pretty pure
Mhm.
red.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's like
It looks. I think because the background is so pink to me.
yeah. Well, I think it is because it's just so light of a red.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Like, I look at it, and, like, at first I thought this was from the gel, but, like, that red on the gun is kind of more of the like, the darkness level I'd want the rest of the reds to be.
That's exactly, yeah, that part on the gun is the red that I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Whereas the red right on a lot of the image, though, is more pink.
Yeah. And, like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah. But overall, though, this photo is, like...
It's
I
dope.
love it.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Alright, let's keep rolling, because I want to try and get to all of them, and
We have lots of photos, you guys.
we've been going slow. Alright. This next one from Leon Cam.
Leon Cam. There.
Okay, cool.
It's my girl! That's Diva.
Oh, I thought I was like cosplayer or...
No.
Alright. Sarah, you wanna start on this one?
My first I like the pose that she's doing, and I like the composition, but the first thing that kind of caught my eye, though, when I opened this image was I felt like her face feels really blown out, and like I almost feel like her face and like her eyes are like the same level of brightness, so I almost kind of like didn't really know like where to focus.
Yeah, it is. I like the softness it lends to the overall image, but like it's just on her face, it's just a hair too bright.
Hair too bright. Like it's not that much. It's just like a little. Yeah, that was my first when I first saw it. That was like my initial thought. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was her right hand seems a bit awkward. Maybe she could have put her hand like on her hip, or maybe it could have been coming out from the side, kind of like she's almost like mid-action or something. But right now, the way it's sitting for me, it feels a little... I hate using this word, but I'm going to say it anyway. It feels a little limp. It's kind of just sitting there.
Well, I think it's because
softly.
It's almost like her arm is almost at 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And like those sharp 90-degree angles are almost never like it's almost never what you want in a pose. I feel like if you had her hand more down by her side, and I always feel like this is really flattering, if you can get kind of a window between her arm and her back, the small of her back, it really slims people out, and it just looks super flattering. That's kind of where I would go with this image. I think that would look really good.
Yeah, the pose always works. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed you will look good.
That, and while we're talking about posing, I'm going to say it so the internet doesn't have to.
The gun.
Girl, get your hand off the trigger.
Yeah, get your hand off the trigger. What you doing? Don't do that. Don't get shit on Reddit and CGL or 4chan or whatever the fuck.
It's hard because like I mean, for me it's I'm not blaming the photographer necessarily here, because God, I've worked with cosplayers where I've told them to keep their finger off the trigger unless they're actively shooting, and then their finger just finds its way back in the trigger, and I'm like not checking it for every single shot I'm taking, and I end up getting screwed over by it. But yeah, it's just something to watch for, and really, you know, tell your cosplayers beforehand.
Keep that finger off the trigger.
Like I grew up in a household of hunters, so like trigger safety is was drilled into my head at a very young age. So I think I'm like particularly noticing it when it happens. But Yeah, just as kind of a mental note. Bless you. I don't think it's. I don't necessarily think it's overly problematic in this image, but just
No,
as
it's
as
not.
a
It's just
note. Um,
yeah.
However, I would say that the gun is on the same, like it's facing the same direction as the cosplayer. It's like straight up and down with the cosplayer. Um, and I feel like if it was leaned a little bit more forwards away from her, so the tip was a little bit more away from her,
In her head,
that
yeah.
yeah, that angle would end up making things feel a little bit more dynamic.
Agreed.
Um, I know you kind of talked briefly about the eyes, but I think a lot to do with this image, the light, that soft lighting that you have looks really great on her overall. And I don't think there's much you can do about this in this image, but I'm gonna screen share just so it's zoomed in. But that catch light on her eye just kind of makes her eyes look really weird because it's such a huge catch light that it takes up most of her eye that's visible to the camera. So more of her eye is highlight than not highlight, especially her left eye. And it just kind of ends up feeling weird. Like,
Can I tell you something whack that I've done before?
oh,
You're gonna judge me so hard.
yeah, well, you got it now.
I know, I'm gonna say it because it's a good trick in my opinion, but it's also super ratchet. Sometimes when there's too much like natural light artifacts like in the eyeball as a highlight, because when you zoom in, you can tell that it's like a car or like the sidewalk or like something in the background that's there. I've actually comped in contact lenses to help tone down that highlight, especially when it's this much, because sometimes you can just like clone tool it out and it's fine, or you can just like burn it out. But sometimes when it's like this much, I'll literally take a colored contact like image and like comp it onto the eye to help tone it down but have it still look natural and not like me trying to clone an eyeball
Oh,
data that doesn't exist.
Sarah, you're saying this like I haven't actually like completely replaced people's eyes because I thought that the eye didn't turn out very well.
Okay, good. Okay. Oh my God, I'm really weird. I'm sorry, guys. I literally comp in different contacts sometimes. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it seems like really extra, but it helps your image. If the only thing that's suffering in your image is the eyes, just like bring in different eyes, bring in some contacts to like.
It sounds so funny when you say it though. Just bring in some different eyes.
I'm not. It's okay. I feel less weird about it now.
Okay,
all right.
good. I mentioned this one earlier, so I won't get into this too deeply, but I and maybe this is just a question purely for the photographer, is what is this angle doing for you? That what does the tilt on this shot gain for you compositionally with this image? I don't know if it's benefiting you here. I think more so than our last image that we looked at that was on a Dutch angle. It bothers me less here than it did before because it's extreme enough that I don't feel like she's, I still feel like she's leaning backwards, but I know that it's intentionally, like I can see where like the level is with the stairs so that I know it's a tilt of the camera. But either way, I still feel like you might end up with a bit stronger of an image if you just straightened out your camera. That's maybe just me and my inherent bias against Dutch angles, though.
Well, I think just to go off of that, I think the background could have been utilized a little better because I think the stairs could lend themselves to a really dynamic shot. Like her going up them and you're shooting like as if she's looking behind you or something, getting ready to shoot or something.
I actually, right now in this image, I really like the top of the stairs on the left hand, that line is going straight towards her head, and then the railing going up goes right to her head. So you've got these two elements that are going towards the focal point of the image, which is great. But like, even if you had this image straightened, that would still do that. Like, you don't need to have it on an angle for that to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'd almost say if you were straightened out, like that pole would come from the corner, or the railing would come from the corner of the image to her head, and I think that might even actually be more dynamic. But
because it leads you to her.
yeah, like I mean, it leads it to her right now, but like coming from the corner will draw you right back into that image. Overall, like I know I'm saying overall a lot, but like this image is really really enjoyable. I love how soft it is. It's really
Agreed.
clean.
Mm-hmm.
Retouching is really good. Her like the light on her face. I know we talked about her eyes a little bit, but like overall her face looks really good. Like it's always hard to tell like what was done by the photographer and what was done by like just makeup, but like her face paint is super clean.
Yeah, what the hell?
It's and like
flawless.
Yeah, her eyebrows look great. Like just her face looks great. So I don't know whether that was the cosplayer being super on point or the photographer being super on point, but you know what? Photographer, you're getting credit for it anyways, so. What? Any more thoughts on this one, or keep on rolling?
No, I think I'm good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. This next one is Mallows.
Okay.
Okay. So, let's see here. I think I'm gonna start talking about what I enjoy about this image. And honestly, so much of Mallow's images is her toning is fucking on point. I want Mallow to put out some like just even if she just did like some speed edits so I could see how she's toning, because like it's great. It's
love it because they're not the norm, but they're so good and they work with every image that she does.
Yeah, like it's weird because like normally like the toning that she has normally you'd see being taken to like blue in the shadows and orange in the highlights, but hers is like a greenish teal in the shadows and like reds in the highlights.
Yeah.
Something like that. And
the blue highlights. And like the overall like, cyan tone is
like nice. My brain when I think about that concept says no, that won't look good, but then here I'm looking at this image and I think it looks good. So
yeah, it's like those things you like, this would never look good if on my photos, but then you somehow make it work. I don't understand.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, Mallow. You say you can point out so many things. Don't worry, we'll get to the negatives. You could.
Yeah, like that pole in the background.
Yeah, no, like legitimately, that's like that pole in the background. Super easy to Photoshop out. What are you doing? Photoshop that out.
She is like one of the most nitpicky freaking clothing fuzzies person I've ever met. She got this. But yeah, that pole in the background. Sorry, dude.
Yeah. It's just like it's like this random like a middle finger that's just chilling in the back of your photo. And I'm like it just is confusing to me.
Yeah.
So, and I know this is kind of how this cosplay works, but with Vicky's arm against this fence, uh, and kind of how the cosplay fell
Yeah.
down just looks really funky to me. Oh, it's kind of
Yeah.
splayed in that circle there and kind of covers part of her chest and her hair.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. It.
Just pulled up a little bit,
Oh yeah.
a little bit.
Oh. That. Don't worry, Mello. I was gonna get to that. The key card on the gate. That once again
Mallow,
another.
stop.
I, it. I would give you less shit for it if those two, that pole and the card reader, weren't both like super easy things to edit out.
Yeah.
Like, man, um, I, yeah, I'd say those two would be things that easily you should. Um, honestly, to take it, the editing maybe up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
And something I could think would be really cool is, I mean, I know where this is, so I could place it no matter what. But like this kind of gate looks really cool, and it could look more. I'm going with the theme of the cosplay, more gothic. But
Mm-hmm.
um, let's say you deleted this the pole in the background, got rid of the key reader. Um, the only thing to me that's reading this image is more modern to me is this window in the background. The window, and then you can tell that it's a building, but like it's so white and it's against this gate. And like nothing is really readable in between the gate holes, or the little checker of the gate. So I'd almost create a mask of the gate and either put like kind of like a blown out sky maybe in there or something. Remove kind of any sign of like of that kind of modernish looking building with a big window.
Yeah.
And I think that could end up with a more powerful image. Um, compositionally, I almost I don't necessarily dislike her pose, but with where she's placed in the image, I wish her body was facing towards camera right instead of camera left. Because she's on the left side of the frame, and then her nose and her body are pointing out of the frame
Mm-hmm.
versus pointing into the frame.
Yeah.
Um, and once again, that's kind of minor, but I think it would kind of uh, end up with a bit more powerful of an image. I do really like how her arms are kind of like there's a diagonal that you can follow from her one arm across her body down to her other arm, and that kind of leads into the corner of the image. And I feel like that ends up feeling very strong.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of movement being created without actual movement,
mm,
which is nice. So I
yeah,
wanted to touch on this small thing because it's something that I think Mallow does really well, and that's going back. I forgot what you called them, the alien eyes.
yeah,
Okay, I think Mallow dodges the eyes just enough. I think this
mhm,
is a good example of like bringing out the color in context in a subject that is further away from the camera, because I know that's when sometimes it's easy to take it too far because you're like,
yeah,
damn, I really want these color contexts to show, but my model is like 10,000 feet away from me. What do I do? Oh my god, I'm just gonna like dodge it to hell and back. Um, but I think she does a really good job at doing it on models that are further away from the camera, but you can still very much tell what her contact color was.
mm,
Again, it's like a really small thing, but it's just something that I think she's
yeah.
nailed.
I absolutely agree, and I think it's because she knows how to enhance eyes.
Hmm.
I'm gonna pull it up on my screen here. Um,
And just
and
how eyes work, like
yeah,
how light
so
hits the eyeball.
so if anyone's curious, look up a tutorial on f-stoppers by Danny Diamond as to how eyes work. It's helped me a ton, and I think the biggest thing is you see how like the bottom bit of her eye is lit, but it's the opposite part of what is where the
Highlighted.
catch light is because when the light comes into the eye, it's going to bounce back out the other side. So that's where the brightness is going to be. So like it follows the natural physics of the eye. So it ends up reading as very natural. Um, and I think that's where the strength. Like these are like when I zoom in, I feel like the eyes are really retouched. But then when you like look at the image as a whole, like it
They don't.
feels like the right amount. And I totally agree
Yeah.
with you. And Mallow does an excellent job at that.
I know that's a really hard medium to get at,
Oh,
but
it's
this
super.
is just a
It's
very good example of it being done really well. And just
yeah,
understanding how light works and how
yeah,
it hits a person's face.
yeah. Um, honestly, I think eyes are the most important part of an image, pretty much. Period. If you're showing a face, the face is going to be the focal point of the image, and if the face has like eyes that are focusing, or especially if they're looking towards the camera and trying to connect to the camera, that is the central most focus point of your image. So if you push it too far, I'm going to notice. If they're off, I'm like if they're not like lit well, it's going to be noticeable. So yeah, I think really paying attention to eyes is a really good way. Also, I feel like if you're looking for good light, like chances are if you look at someone's eyes and they have a really nice catch light in them,
Mhm.
that light's going to be good on their face and the rest of their body. Like
Yeah,
so like just I can't talk about how
important.
important eyes are in general.
Agreed.
So now that we've gushed about Mallow's editing for long enough,
For like 10 years.
let's move on to the next guy.
Yay!
Okay, this next one is Mary's shot. I'm gonna pull it up on my computer.
Cool.
Okay. Do you want to jump in this one first, or should I go for it?
Yes, I'll start.
All right, cool.
I want to say right off the bat, I really like the lighting in this photo. Again, I'm a sucker for natural light, so any kind of natural light, I'm like, hell yes. I really like the glow that's going on up top. I think it adds like a really nice, like soft, like ephemeral, like feel to the photo, which I think is it's like a nice juxtaposition to like a League of Legends character, which I feel like are usually like those photos are usually like very dynamic and like in your face, and there's like weapons in your faces, but this one feels like very like serene and like elegant, which I enjoy. It's just very different from other like League of Legends uh, photos that I've seen. Um, One thing I do want to touch on is costume awareness on your model. Because one of the first things I noticed actually was her walking out of her shoe. You notice her right foot; she's walking out
Ah,
of it.
yes. I noticed that
Yeah.
as well. It wasn't the
Um,
first thing one of the very first things I
yeah.
noticed, but
And then the other thing is, I mean, this shit happens, you guys. I know. Like, your costume is just like, you're a hot mess. You don't notice these things. I think in this particular instance, though, I feel like her top slipped a bit and is a little bit lower than probably what she wanted. And I think just being aware of that and being like, oh, just make sure to tug up your top or, to make sure
mhm.
everything is like a okay.
Yeah. So on that, continuing on that train of thought, Um, I feel like the prop that she's holding is just blocking a bit too much of her body. Um,
Hmm. Cutting into her neck.
yeah, it just feels awkward, and it's this big flat surface. Um, that of that prop, the top of that prop, like there's no depth to it. It's kind of like, for the most part, facing directly onto the camera. Um, so I, I just I almost wish the prop wasn't in the shot. I think the shot would be better if the prop wasn't there.
Hmm.
Um, Also, I want to see her back hand, the hand that's hiding behind her. Whether that's kind of bringing that arm forward so it's coming out in front of her.
Her upper body rotation a
Yeah,
little bit.
something to bring that hand out so that we see it. Generally speaking, there's not too many times where I feel like I'm okay with the hand being completely, or the entirety of an arm being completely obscured. I'd
Hmm.
like to see a little bit of it. It just kind of brings the entirety of the body into context. I know it's kind of also with the prop is like the arm that is showing her elbow is kind of like pinned against her body, and if it was like up and you could kind of follow the back of the line of her back a little bit more, it would just be more flattering to her body shape.
Yeah, creating those open spaces
Yeah.
between your body.
Yeah. Um Overall composition of this photo, I feel like is so close to being excellent.
Yep.
Um this pathway is awesome. It it's as kind of it's got those hard lines, and as stereotypical as it is, it's kind of that similar reason as to why so many people want to shoot on railroad tracks, because they've got these two parallel lines that converge and they point right onto their subject, and it's just like, especially because it's
Or
got these very hard lines on the edge. It's not like a path with a soft edge. It's got hard lines on it, and
yeah.
it it works really well. um what I want to see from this image, and I am guessing either it would be very hard or impossible, is for the angle to be a little bit higher. um that way, taking that angle higher, you'd get those lines to converge more towards her head. And then I feel like that building in the background is doing you no favors in this shot.
Yeah.
And by getting that angle higher, you're removing that building, and you're keeping the kind of the nature that really is the appealing parts of the shot. You're putting more of that into the shot. Um, I know I'm trying to guess the focal length on this shot, and it might very well be like guessing like 50 or 85, somewhere around there.
Hmm.
Um, I'm leaning more towards 85, but I'm purely guessing. Um, and I feel like, it can be hard to get that higher angle. It's not like you're shooting. This is definitely not 35. So, like, if you were shooting above your head, with 35, you can at least compose a little easier, versus, like, let's say this was an 85. It's a lot harder to do. But
Maybe if I mean, I don't know how much not road or sidewalk there is to this photo, but maybe if she was like brought forward a little more,
yeah.
so like, to counteract that, because as you all know, I only shoot with like the 50, and sometimes it's just you just can't get that higher angle, or because you're 5 feet tall and you literally just cannot. So a good solution though is to just move your body, just physically move you and the model,
Mm.
so you can get rid of those background elements that you maybe don't want,
Ah.
but you have a lens that doesn't really enable you to go from a higher angle.
Mm.
Yeah, short people problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So, agreed. I think you're overall though. Like, I forgot to say this, but I echo the sentiment on the lighting. The lighting looks really good in this image. So
So dreamy. I love it.
yeah.
Love.
All right. Let's move on to the next guy here.
Cool.
Another Mary. Um, Mary Joe though this time. Like I said, I'm doing this alphabetically just because it was the easiest way to organize these photos. When it was funny, like just as a kind of an insight to this, when we were putting this together, um, uh, I had so like thinking that we weren't going to have enough, and then all of a sudden at the last bit, like a ton of people submitted, so we have a more. So I think for these last few, I know like Sarah, I feel like you and I both like want to give these the proper amount of time and be wordy, but like I want to get through all of them and not to cut any off.
Yeah, I don't want to leave anyone out this time.
Yeah, so
We're trying to be concise.
yeah, so let's maybe be try and be a little bit more to the point here. Um,
I have a thought.
go for it.
Only be so when I first saw this image, I feel like truthfully the fountain has more attention than the actual model.
Yes.
I think that's because I mean the model's in the shade and then the fountain is in the actual like sunlight. So I think in this case, the model really fails to stand out in this photo. So that was the first thing that caught my eye. And also I feel like because the way that it's framed up right now, the model is so far to the left,
Yeah.
and like the fountain is taking up like, I mean, it's almost taking up half of the photo.
Yeah.
At this point, there's not really competition for space or like attention. It's the fountain is getting that attention, unfortunately.
So what I want in this image is I want it to be zoomed in more, and I want her back to be on the other side of that pillar.
Yep.
So you can keep most of the framing the same, but her body is pointing out of the frame, so I immediately leave the frame when I look at her. Which is not what you want. Also, because of how it's pointing, I immediately tune into the $22 flat rate and $16 flat rate. Like, you just like you don't want that in your image, and like, you know, is it easy enough to Photoshop out? Yeah, but like if you put her on the other side, I think you can see the light direction on the pole or on that pillar. I think it would look really flattering to have her on the other side. She'd still be in the shade. She'd have the light falling on her more directly. You could zoom in a little closer. I'd assume. I don't know. I don't know if you have a zoom or if this was like a prime and you were stuck where you were and couldn't
Just
zoom
prime
in
the
for.
fountain. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
And I think that compositionally would be a little bit better. Even as this
really well.
even as this photo is right now, I feel like give it a 16:9 crop.
That's a crop.
Yeah, because all that like the bottom of this frame is just kind of garbagey. Like you're seeing the inner workings of the fountain, like this weird like pump, the lights, it's like not the parts of the fountain you want to see. So, and it's very bright. So like just giving it a 16:9 crop is going to, I think, really kind of make the image feel a lot stronger.
I think that brings up a good point. If you ever feel like your photo is stuck, like compositionally, or you feel like your crop wasn't quite right, like when you captured it, 16:9 crop, freaking great. it has saved some of my images, honestly. Like
Oh yeah,
sometimes
I
I'm not
100%
happy with
agree.
what I did, and I'm like, shit, I don't know what to do. I can't crop in. It looks awkward. I can't zoom out because I just have nothing left to show. So I'm just like, you know what? Let me just slap a 16 by 9 crop on there, and I'll just crop it, and it'll be swell. And it's kind of amazing what a 69 crop will do to your photos. Not
Yeah.
gonna lie.
Uh, but it really like if there's just so much breathing space either on the top or the bottom or both sides of your image like that, like you don't like we're not who's printing their photos like so you have to adhere to like the strict like 5 by 7 crop. Chances are you're
Not the
not.
majority.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so and 16 by 9 looks really good on a computer screen because chances are your computer is 16 by 9. So like just give it a
Also works
try.
great for cover photos. Just
Oh yeah,
saying.
it's just 16 by 9 like I feel like progressively I use it more and more because it's just
Good.
looks really good.
Yeah. It's
Um
a good quick fix that when you're stuck and you don't know what else to do. Just do that and you're like, yes, this is it.
also also like I just love the guy in the
The
very right of the
hotel
image
stuff.
that's just kind of looks like he's holding his head like where am I going?
Why am I at an anime convention?
Yeah, so like even all things considered, get him out of that photo. Like crop in a little bit. Like that side of the image, you don't need it. So get rid of it. um, let's keep moving. Next one is Neil's image.
Yeah, Bonabon.
Okay, and
Ready, boy?
cool. I'm ready. Feels like you're ready. You're ready on this one, Sarah. Go.
Neil, get ready. I'm kidding. um, okay. First of all, the location that you shot at is freaking perfect. You have these.
I want to shoot there, damn it. Like that was my first thought when I saw this is like I want to shoot there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I love these. I know they're not cherry blossom trees, but they're close enough. And it works with because it's Cardcaptor Sakura, dude, my fave. So love. And I really like her, like, I like her pose and like her facial expression. It almost kind of looks like you called out to her and she was like, "What?" And she's like waiting, like she's about to speak to someone behind you. I don't know. I just really like it when photographers are able to capture like a really pure looking moment. Like
It
this doesn't look
it
posed.
feels yeah, like I tend to go with my own work as like kind of just capturing the beauty of a scene, but like it's really cool when there's shots like this that feel like they're capture like they could be captures out of like a live action thing. Like that's what that pose says to me. Like it feels really natural. It feels like it's almost in the middle of like them acting and could be kind of filmed and less like this really beautiful posed thing, and it's really cool. I do not excel at that at all. And I
It's
kind of
hard.
it's
It's
hard. Like it yeah, it requires both really great direction from the photographer and really good cosplayer. So like props.
the nitpicky thing I'm going to bring up about her pose, and it's something that we've talked a bunch about today, is the fact that again her left no wow her right arm is missing. So I wish
Mhm.
her upper body was turned a little bit more towards the camera just to see a little bit more of it. Again, that's like really really nitpicky, but I think it would help it a little bit.
Agreed.
um Neil, I'm going to bring this up because I love you, but please don't hate me. um I feel like retouching wise, I feel like could use a little love um around her face, just kind of like
Yes, I was going to
lightning
touch on that.
shadows on her eyes, things like that.
I
But Miyuki
100%
cosplay
agree.
looks great.
Also, I know you wanted to get a ton of the tree in this because the tree is like just awesome looking. But because of that, her head is in the center of this frame. And I'm a firm believer that if you're
You know
going
what
for
I
like a
think would have
full
been really
body,
nice, and this is just like an angle change, if it was almost like you were looking up at her, sort of a little bit, because right now it's like very straight on, and I
yeah,
think maybe from like a lower angle could have been pretty
yeah,
nice
or
too,
just
like
just
capturing.
tilting the camera down a little bit and getting her head more towards the top of the frame or
Yeah,
something. Because like I don't know, it having someone's head in the very middle of the frame rarely works. It reminds me of kind of sorry, this isn't meant to be offensive. It reminds me of beginner photographers because they're
hmm
they read head as focal point and very center of frame as focal point. So they put the head in the very center and then they take the picture and it just kind of feels like you end up with so much space above the person that it's just like like if you were to move this down just a little bit, I think it
yeah.
would help this image. Um, but I know you're losing more of that beautiful tree. Um, but sometimes it's what you gotta do.
Yeah. But the different angles can help like alleviate some of that, where you can still get a lot of the tree, but still have like get rid of some of that extra space at the top.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But
Uh,
overall, dude, for someone
yeah.
who just started, doing
Oh,
pretty
oh,
okay.
fuck! If you just started, dude, just this is on point. If you're just starting,
Yeah, he's like a car photographer usually and does like composites, but he just started cosplay stuff like this year.
um, the other thing I would say on this image is what just real quick. Feel like you're crushing the blacks a little bit. It's a little underexposed, just a hair. If you
Yeah,
brighten that
I
up a
did want
little
to bring
bit,
that up too because it's kind of like a running theme in a lot of your photos. I feel like is that your shadows are a little on the verge of a little too dark.
yeah, like and her eyes because of that end up being like black holes.
Yeah,
And honestly, you could compensate even if you crush the blacks a little bit. Like, just put some like purples in those blacks or something, and with like a gradient map or like a curves adjustment layer, I think it would end up with a much softer feel to this image. Um,
hmm.
and you know you're probably going to end up liking it more for that reason because like I mean card captors is inherently like
Jojo.
yeah this light and fluffy kind of feeling thing so like I mean this
Dodge
is
and burn, Neil. Dodge and burn. It's gonna be your best friend.
yeah like I just this is my like 5 second job on this so like take it for what it is but
Ooh,
this
I
is
want to see.
so I just a teeny bit of brightness, upping the brightness, and then bringing some like pinkish purples into the shadows, and
Oh,
like
yes.
I feel like this image ends up feeling and oh I cropped in a little bit, and I feel like this image ends up feeling way stronger. Maybe that's just me, but so and once again this is my like 5 second version of this, so don't take it just like if you're
But
like
it is
oh
taking that the color grading aspect of retouching to that
yeah
level that brings the series to life. You know.
yeah
Oh my gosh, he looks so anime.
all right let's keep going. Got 1 2 3 4 5 6 more.
Bye, Neil.
All right, so this next one is Philip Sejors. I think I'm pronouncing his last name right.
Couldn't tell you. Okay.
So I feel like Phil was pitching a softball with this one, where he's just like, how do I get Andrew to talk really nicely about my photo? Maybe I put one of a photo I took of his fiance in here. Maybe that'll help. So I'm like, damn it. I don't know if I can be that hard on this.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
um, so I actually kind of I'm a sucker for that freaking sun in the background. Like,
Oh
that
yeah,
is my aesthetic in photo. Like, hell yeah, and these like foreground like flower things going on. The one thing though is that I feel like her pose feels very stiff, and she almost looks a little bit uncomfortable to me. Um, I feel like just overall her body could be doing something more with her hands, or maybe because I know these outfits have like those like butt cape things, doing like a flip, just something to add some kind of like movement, especially because this flower in the foreground is like kind of going to the left and is already indicating like some kind of movement action going on, but right now she's kind of not really like there's a lot of movement happening like within the nature component of this photo, but like she's very stiff and like standing still. So I feel like if her body was doing something more, it would
so
help a lot.
so I'm gonna talk about before I get to the posing. I think need to talk about the overall composition because I've ragged on several people for the Dutch angle so far. And I feel like this is the one image so far where the Dutch angle feels like it's helping.
Agreed.
So it really just helps kind of make the image feel a little bit more dynamic, without feeling
I feel like
tilted.
the environment, it feels like an anime opening. Like I feel like I'm watching an anime opening, and it's like that opening sequence where they zoom in and there's like all this wind and shit, and they're in a grassy field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. The lighting is just wonderful. Like the way it's falling on her face is super great. The foreground elements are awesome. I love the flare coming in. It's just like compositionally, I think the only thing is maybe you could crop it in just a little bit, like from the top. It feels like, that way her body kind of sits a little bit more in the center of the frame, and has a little less of that like negative space on top. But like the framing is really awesome.
Nice.
So pose wise, I think the reason, well, her hands feel really dead. They're just both at her side, not doing anything. And I think even like if one was up and one was like out more, that would end up feeling a little bit more dynamic. But I think the problem comes in is that her torso is straight on to us as the camera.
Yeah, there's no angle. The only
Yeah.
thing angled really is her head.
Yeah, which if you look at the light on her head, on her face, it's gorgeous the way it's falling under her face. I maybe wish her nose was just a teeny bit more towards us so it wasn't covering her eye.
Yeah.
But I think if she had her, I'm trying to think. I don't know if it would make the pose look a little bit more weird. If I don't know which way I want her torso to turn, but it needs to turn one way or the other. I think maybe turning it a bit more away from her head, and then having one that arm that's same way facing her head up, and the other arm kind of down and out away from her body would end up helping. But then again, maybe I'd want it turned towards the light, but then I think maybe it would look like she's just looking off and like just standing straight. Point being is I think everything is awesome in this shot except for the pose.
Agreed.
even I'd say like the color toning on this is, while it's not anything like super special, it's just really clean and really
Hmm.
natural looking. So like, while I wouldn't call it like an artistic toning, it does like it just really aids to kind of the cleanliness of this image.
Yeah.
So I really think the only area that this shot needs work on is the posing.
That being said, though, I feel like some kind of like light artistic toning would really, really
Set
like,
set it over the top.
yeah,
Yeah.
like this is a very dynamic photo. Just even though the pose, even with the pose being kind of like lacking a little bit, I think even color toning it a little bit would help it be elevated.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
Yeah, just like a bit of color in the shadows,
yeah,
maybe.
would just bring it to a different level. I think.
Yeah. It's funny though because you say anime opening. Like I'm literally just imagining like the kind of like anime
Oh,
opening.
wrong?
Yeah, like there's going to be a wind that blows from behind her and blows her head outwards as her hair
Yes, and
outwards
she's
as
so
like
up. Yeah,
yeah
hairs in her face. Yeah,
it's like some anime opening bullshit. It's
I love it,
it
but I love it.
Phil is uh this was taken at an event I hosted last summer,
Oh,
and I think this was Phil's first location shoot.
dude,
So
nice.
I just want to reiterate, Phil, I think you have a shit ton of talent, and I want to see you use it more. So
Do it, dude.
awesome.
Seriously.
All right, next one.
Yay.
Okay, this next one is Poya's or Young Senpai, which I love.
I know, I love this name. So good.
Okay, let's bring it up.
Okay.
Ugh, I'm getting hot with my headphones on. My ears are not breathing at all.
No, I need to turn on the air conditioning. It's hot. No, I'm gonna do that actually.
You're like, well, now that you brought it up, it's okay for me to go turn on the
I
AC.
know, I was like, I'm kind of dying. I think I
Okay,
need to turn on
okay.
the
Well,
air
while you do that,
conditioning.
I will jump into talking about this
You
one then.
you start talking.
Okay, cool. Um, so the overall like when I get into this shot, uh, the overall look is just this really kind of the how bright it is and the light on her face just ends up feeling really soft, and I really like it. Um, but I kind of think we need to the lighting could be improved a little bit on this. I think I'm taking a guess because you're in shadows, but we're getting this real strong, real direct like kind of pin light on the eyes, and I'm wondering if it's using like either you're using a flash or a reflector. Either way, I feel like it's coming from a bit too low. It's kind of filling it a bit low, and I'd want it a little higher so that those shadows feel a little bit more natural. I think it might be a flash just a little bit to camera left. I could be wrong. It could be a reflector, but I think the
I can't.
reflection. Yeah, I think the catch light in the eye would be a little bit bigger if it was a reflector. Um, but yeah, right now, and then you kind of end up with that. Even though the light feels mostly soft, you've got this kind of hard light that comes off of the nose, and kind of the left side of their face, camera right, their left side of their face feels kind of dark and harsh. Like the left side of their face looks great, but then the right side kind of gets those hard shadows. Um, Another thing that's kind of nitpicky, and I know this shouldn't be on you, but but we're looking at this shot, and I'm going, man, they needed to iron their cosplay.
Yeah.
but they didn't iron their cosplay. So I know I personally would edit out those real strong wrinkles, those like crease lines. There's like a couple that are running across the torso, and they end up feeling really distracting to me.
Hmm.
So I would edit them out. Um, at least one of them I would edit out. There's kind of one, the middle one on the left side of the shirt is the one that like really gets me the most.
Yeah. It's the biggest one.
Hmm.
Or the most pronounced one.
Yeah. Um. Other things with this shot. So you've kind of got this really overexposed, like a ton of like just sections that really don't have any detail that are kind of blown out in the background. I feel like your best bet is to embrace that in this shot. Um, and in the background to really, like with that building, the reds and the green of that tree, I would really push the brightness up so it almost feels mostly blown out in the background. And
Mm.
I kind of would end up, the image would end up having a real, even softer feeling to it that could be really appealing. Okay, Sarah, now that you've turned on your AC.
Yeah. Actually, I was gonna say the opposite. Um, I almost feel like I feel like I get it, what you were going for with like the backlighting, but I almost feel like in this case it's not working.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like usually when I see like a backlit shot, it's for like dynamic aesthetic, and it's usually like in a like um I want to say like necessarily like at like a like later time of day. I don't know. I think just because I'm not getting like that dynamic feeling from this photo, I personally don't understand why it's backlit right now. Um I feel like it would have been more beneficial to have the model be like have the light be on them as opposed to be to the back of them. And I'm not saying backlight is bad. I just think there are certain like aesthetic circumstance reasons when backlight is good. But I just feel like here in this case, instead of like I feel like or I guess I'm almost agreeing with you. Like if you're gonna blow it out and go for this like an almost ethereal like white thing in the
So
background, then like do it.
I guess what I would say here is in my mind that if this is the photo you have and you're trying to deal with what you have at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
I think you
Go
come
for
you
it.
come back, you edit this photo and you realize this is what you have, then I say you try and blow out the background.
Yes.
Um but if
Agreed.
you're there and you're taking this shot, I don't know if this is the best lighting situation you can get.
Yeah. I
Cuz
guess
like
that's what I was trying to say. I'm just not being very
yeah.
eloquent at all.
Yeah, for sure. Overall, I
But
don't
I
know.
second the wrinkle thing.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Since we're kind of shortening the few that we have left, I'm gonna go to the next one. Okay, this next one is King Cosplays or Scott's.
God.
um, Let me know when you have it up.
Got it.
Cool. Okay. So,
Okay, I'm gonna start first.
okay, go for it.
Okay. So we haven't I don't feel like we've talked about like artistic color toning as much. Um I feel like this is a case where I feel like this photo would really, really benefit from it.
Mm.
Scott, because I know you used to do it, boy. I
Yeah.
remember. Because I feel right now the editing is very, very clean, which is fine, but I think to elevate this image even more, I think this image really, really could benefit from some color grading.
Yeah,
Because I love the contrast between like the red and like the magenta against the green background. But right now, the costume colors and like the nature elements are very much in their natural state. Like that's just how they are. But I think if you were able to put your own artistic spin on what those colors should be, I think this image could be like super bomb. Especially because she's so well lit compared to the background. Like she really pops out, which is really nice. Um, I just feel like taking that extra step to play around with the coloring of this photo would just be awesome,
yeah. The
honestly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The lighting on this image is really good too. Like it's just she just ends up being so nicely lit compared to the background, and it
Mm-hmm.
really helps her pop out of this image. Um One thing that I think I know I said I liked foreground elements, and I do, and I don't necessarily think this is the worst foreground element. I like the leaves that are in the foreground, but
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, like
The,
the stick like white sections of the foreground element kind of end up feeling a little messy.
agreed.
Um, that and you can tell it was hard lit because like if you look at the log she's sitting on, you can see the shadows of that the leaves on it. It was hard lit with flash. So I'm almost thinking if you can take that light up a little bit higher so you're not lighting those leaves because I don't think you're getting any benefit out of lighting those leaves. I think if you take them if they're darker,
Mm-hmm.
it helps a little bit. And then you just crop in just ever so slightly. And I don't think cropping in the photo and post will help all that much, but I think like if you were there in person, just like stepping in like one or two steps could help just because like it just gets a little cluttered.
Yeah.
um and then there's the one part of the kind of that foreground element stick that bothers me the most is the one where it's coming right back down towards her wing. um
Yeah.
that little
Very.
element just it just feels the most out of place out of anything in the shot in my
Mm-hmm.
eye, since it is like kind of like a white oh, this my eye ends up going to it for clarity, talking about this guy right here. Yeah, it just ends up my eye ends up getting drawn to it. So I would, and it's because you're of the kind of background you're against, like photoshopping that out shouldn't be all that hard.
Yeah, that was really like my only gripe was that one tiny branch
Yeah,
and some of the dead tree elements in the foreground.
yeah. Um, there's some really minor posing that I think I would change. Um, I think having her like I like her hand where it like on her shoulder, but I'd like to see her fingers less kind of like ball like all at the same level and kind of more relaxed feeling towards her shoulder. Because like all her knuckles are like in a row, but like if she had kind of like instead of I'm gonna use the webcam instead of like this, if she was kind of had her hand more like that, it'd feel a little cleaner. And then have her elbow just a little bit further out, so we're kind of once again seeing that small of her back space. Um, that and I want her chin up just a little bit.
Show a little more neck.
Yeah, feels like she's coming down a little bit too much. And like it only needs to be a little bit higher up, but and I don't think it's problematic as it is right now. But just a little bit higher would feel a little bit better. Otherwise, I really like this shot. Like this shot's really good.
Yeah.
Um, if we're going to get super nitpicky. What I would love to have seen is kind of how, I don't know what part of the cosplay you'd call it, but the part that's draped on the log, instead of falling down straight on the log, if it continued down the side, the way she was on top of the log versus coming down off the log, I think that could look really cool, because as it is right now, it's just kind of feels like this
That's just
white
there.
square piece. And it's not what I'd call a negative. I just think it could be a bit more of a positive if it continued to drape outwards instead of just dropping down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it kind of just like that's just how she sat, and then that's how it laid. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, for sure. Okay, got three more. Okay,
Yeah.
this next one, Scott Waldron's. Um, Let me know when you have it.
I'm good.
Okay, cool.
You go first.
Okay. Um, I feel like I'm gonna start it off with the most nitpicky thing. I feel like there was just a critical focus was missed just ever so slightly on her eyes.
Yeah.
Um, it's not anything super substantial, but
It's so close.
yeah. Um, but man, that's the kind of stuff that in my own work drives me nuts and makes me question if I use an image or not. Like, man, if
Mm-hmm.
the image is really strong, and I'm like, this is why it's so hard. That's why I spend so much time culling through my images, because like picking the shots can be so hard. When like one's, let's say the one that is you nailed focus on, you like the pose just a little bit less. You go, do I sacrifice
Me.
sharp knot for the better pose? And I think the right choice is to pick the better pose and sacrifice a little bit of sharpness.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I agree.
so
If the pose isn't great, man.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna get nitpicky too. Because there's we're only getting nitpicky because there's really I like this image a lot.
Mm,
I think the lighting's really nice, the coloring's really nice, the cosplayer looks great. Um, the one thing I would be aware of is the fixing up her lace front wig.
mm,
I'm bringing this up also because I see this go amiss a lot in photos, and that's kind of just like fixing the line between where the lace front like cap is. I don't really know what you call it. And your real skin. And right now on the right, I can see a very defined line of where her lace front starts and where her real skin is.
yeah.
Um, so just kind of like melding those two together, because like the top of her forehead looks seamless,
Yeah.
but then as you kind of like go towards the right, you can see that line. And I know, like, if as a cosplayer, I would be like, shit, did I not like spirit gum that down enough? Like, why is this like, why is it showing that
Yeah.
pronounced? So I think just being mindful of like those kinds of things is good.
Mm, agreed. Um,
Yeah. Again, that's really picky, but you know.
yeah. I I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna talk on the color a little bit. I almost
Mm-hmm.
feel like this image ends up feeling a bit too warm. Um.
It's funny. I think it feels a little too green.
Oh, and that's where I go. Like, I have an
Okay.
aversion against yellow greens.
Yeah.
I think they just look, and I think I've talked about this with another photographer before, and I think it's just because those yellow greens are like so prominent in everywhere. Like the grass is that color, all the trees are that color, and that like strong yellow green is just in so many shots and
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I think because we see it so often, it kind of registers as this really kind of bland and uninteresting color.
Yeah, I like adding blues into my
Yeah.
greens.
So I was gonna say, so there's two ways you can take it, and I think they're both fairly easy. You can take them warmer, or you can take them cooler. I think you can take them to like an almost orange color and kind of give it this autumn look, which
Oh,
I
it'd be
think
so
for
pretty.
this image could look really cool. Or you could take
I'm
them
totally gonna try it
cooler.
right now.
What?
I'm trying it right
Oh,
now.
yeah. Like I do think you end up with a really strong image if you just alter those greens a little bit. And once again, it's probably my bias against greens that feel that way, ends up feeling that way. Overall, like it's not like an overly, it's a very portrait crop. Like you don't have a lot of negative space. Um, but it's not trying to be something it's not. I think it's very, this photo is very clear as to what it is, and it's not. I think that ends up being a strength of it. You know?
Agreed. It's a really pretty shot.
Yeah.
It like conveys the character very well.
Mm.
Um, I don't know, just it's like the characters literally come to life in
Yeah.
this photo to me.
Um, Emmer also did an awesome job on this cosplay.
She did,
This was
as
actually from
usual.
last weekend.
Oh, you know
So
what? Really?
yeah, it was a big group shoot.
Oh, nice. Love
Maybe
it.
once again being a little nitpicky is the shadow that falls on her face. Like, I'm gonna switch over. Right here, kind of this triangle of shadow is, I feel like, could use just the slightest bit of brightening up. Um, Maybe not even on the far edge, not this section, but like right in there underneath her eye.
Hmm.
Um, because it's getting the shadow from her hair, and I think brightening that could end up like that. That's the only thing on her face that I see, and I go, okay, that could be brightened a little bit, other than, as you said before, the lace front.
Mallow actually just posted something that I agree with. I think enhancing the freckles, so like a little burning on the face, would have been really nice too.
Yeah,
For some, I know it's like, even though we were just talking about taking out some of the shadow, but more burning in the sense of bringing in detail that she had done it with the makeup. When you zoom in, her freckles are so nice. Like,
mm.
they're so well done. Um, it would just be nice to bring those out like a tiny bit.
Yeah, agreed. It's also, actually, I'm gonna say, fairly impressive. I know I'm friends with Scott, and I know he tends to do very, very little retouching on his photos. So the fact that it's this clean with like almost, I'm pretty sure this was probably all Lightroom and no Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
That's
yeah, like it looks damn good.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's a nice photo. I mean, these are just really small things that
Yeah,
I'm like, it's not making or breaking it.
yeah. All right, two more.
Hey.
Let's go. Victoria's is the next up.
Cool. Ready? Oh no.
Okay, I can. There's one thing I want to jump in to
Okay.
right away. Um, I I feel like I know why this photo was taken as vertical. Because the cosplayer is standing and they want to get the body, and then the hands going upwards, and the kind of like helm adds a lot of verticality. But with the
Mm-hmm.
hand going out like this shot, I think, would look so much better as a horizontal. Um, Horizontal. I think lots of times photographers worry about like chopping off like the top of this helm that a cosplayer spent so much time working on.
Hmm.
Um, but I think there's a lot more power in like this. If you look at it, this like the top bits of this image are not the interesting parts. The bottom left corner is not the interesting part. The hand going up and that real strong pointed armor on her hand is really interesting. I'd bring her
Hmm.
hand a little bit lower so as by her face, uh, like in line with her face a bit more, and then do a vertical or a horizontal crop on it. And I
Hmm.
think you end up with a really cool looking image
Yeah, I
composition.
just want to like, yeah, I think overall, if I feel like for me, like composition at the end of the day of a photo of a cosplay that you're in is what I feel like that is what brings all your hard work that you've spent on this like labor intensive costume like worth it. Like even if you're not showing everything, if you just capture like that character doing some dank pose and you show, most of the costume, like that's enough for me personally. Um I don't because I do feel like sometimes the photographer battles. I battle it too, and I shoot people. I'm like, do they want a full body? Should I show the whole thing? Like, this doesn't look really good though if I try and show the whole thing. Um, but I do feel like at the end of the day, it is like the cropping and the pose that the cosplayer does, even though you're cutting things out, is what is worth it in the end. You know?
Yeah. I think next up on the list of difficult things on this photo is the lighting. Like I kind of don't know what's going on with the lighting.
I
Um
feel like it was like an overcast day, or I feel like it's was overcast, and everything feels kind of
I don't
like flat, if that makes any
yeah.
sense.
So that may be it, but I almost like it
Oh, the
almost
background's
feels
just pretty.
the lighting almost feels dappled to me instead because you've got this
Oh.
really hot patch on her cheek and then you go over to her nose and her nose is much darker.
Yes, yeah, I don't know if that's from a result of like dodging and
Yeah,
burning.
I don't know either. It could be
No?
from dodging and burning or it could be from dappled light. Either are possible, and all
Yeah.
I know is the lighting just ends up feeling really unflattering in this shot. um and then like the colors of her face are like they're in the pinks and the blue spectrum, and like generally speaking, like they're like full on like magentas, not like a reddish pink.
Hmm.
um and I don't know the character, so maybe that's accurate to the character, but like generally speaking that's not what you want.
Yeah.
um that, and you compare it to like, I mean, on her arm it's, it's still very pink in hue, but like at least the saturation isn't like that super strong saturation that really makes it kind of, jump out at you and feels really weird.
Right. I think one of the issues that I'm having with the lighting is that there's not a very clear, at least to me, a very clear separation between subject and background
Yes.
elements. Right now they very much feel the same. So like even though there is more contrast like on the cosplayer, there's still so much going on in the background, but it's also on the same level of lighting as the model that I'm just not like my eyes are just like I don't really know where to look. There's a lot going on in this photo. Um so I think
I think if
like
you
burning
tone, yeah, if you tone down the contrast in the background,
would help a
and
lot.
maybe if you darken it a little bit, like don't bring up the shadows but just drop the highlights in the background, it might help this image a little bit.
Like the
or
model would pop a lot more.
or just honestly, I feel like that it would help, but I think your best bet is not to shoot this with that as your background.
Yeah. But if there was no other option, I think, decreasing the contrast
Yeah.
in post
I mean,
would help your
yeah,
model pop.
it's hard to like. I mean, I know. It, my guess is that they're shooting with a more entry level camera and maybe with the kit lens because the background is like there's very little blur to it.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I feel like if you were shooting at something that gets to like f1.8 or even 2.8, like that background ends up getting blurred way more, and the shot looks a fair amount better because there's so much micro contrast in that background.
Yeah. It's noisy.
Yeah,
Like in a
and
texture kind of way.
there's like that one dot of yellow that makes it feel like someone left like a piece of trash over there.
Yeah.
Okay. Think we've gone into that one enough, so let's move on to the very last shot from Vincent.
Vincent. Oh my god. Going the wrong way again. Got it.
Okay.
I don't know who did this cape flip, but it's beautiful. This cape
I'm
is so
pretty
beautiful
sure it
looking.
was Melinda doing the cape flip, Melinda being the cosplayer.
Okay, I was gonna add to that. I was like, this just looks. It's such a good flip.
Melinda is a absolute pro in everything she does, so
I mean, I believe that 10,000%.
so I'm gonna believe
Yeah.
it's Melinda. So I feel like one thing fixes this photo a
Mhm.
lot, and it's if you move the light that you're shooting with from camera left to camera right.
Yep.
I
Because
think
the cape is getting most of the light.
yeah, and you know her face is losing most of that light, and like you getting that really weird shot. I'm trying to think what I'm friends with Vincent, and I know I saw him this day. This was at C2E2. I'm trying to remember what modifier he was shooting with. Probably like he's got a 60-inch um, uh, parabolic umbrella, and I don't think I have to feel like I have to feel like that wasn't what this was because like the light coming off of like her nose just feels a little too hard.
Mhm.
But either way, I feel like you move that light source to the other side of her body, and this image ends up looking a lot stronger.
Agreed.
Um,
She's all shadow.
yeah, like I feel like that kind of rim of her cape ends up getting all of the attention, and like just the side of her face and like everything else ends up kind of getting shadowed, and
Right.
like especially since the fact that like her like suit is essentially white, like
Mhm.
like that should be way brighter than it is, but
Right.
it isn't bright. So um other thoughts that I have, I know I've done this before at this exact location, um, is shot here and photoshopped out the railing.
Okay, yep.
It's not like because of how simple the background it is against.
It's an
Like,
easy Photoshop job.
yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that's not a yeah, it's not a difficult job. Um,
I actually almost feel like also, I think this is an instance because earlier we were talking in the previous photo we were talking about showing the whole costume or not,
yeah,
and I almost feel like this one you don't need to. Um,
yeah. I feel like her.
I actually want to say a 16:9 crop would look really nice.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like I feel like her boots are not like you don't need that in
No.
this shot.
She didn't make, I mean, unless she's making shoes now, which I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
Um,
And I feel like more centering of her body. Although I don't know, the cape takes is so heavy leaning, but like yeah, I really do feel like you zoom in here. I'm just for the sake of just trying it out.
the 16 by 9 crop is pretty dope.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now.
Yep. I just did it as well.
It's great. Oh, it's so dynamic.
Yeah.
It's
So
so great.
yeah, I think you do that. The cape flip just looks spectacular. I mean her front hand looks a little weird, but honestly, with how good the cape looks, like you're trying to make an awesome looking cape flip,
Right.
it's
By
gonna be
yourself.
really hard to like have everything look awesome.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think you even just cropping this image in right now, I'm just like, man, that looks really good. Like
Yep.
you still have the problems with the lighting on this image, but I think it does look a lot more interesting.
But I think also another thing that can save this image is a little more editing, because right now it's just like a very clean edit. But I think if it was played around with a bit more, it would help
Hmm.
elevate it too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't completely solve the lighting issues, but I think it would help the image a lot.
yeah,
It's a beautiful shot. Melinda looks great. Her costume looks great. The pose is great. Location, just take out the poles, is fine. I mean,
yeah. It's
good,
it's
solid.
it's hard because this location the is in the basement of the McCormick Center for C2E2.
Oh, okay.
And you're pretty much not getting away with shooting here without flashes.
Hmm.
But the thing is, you're getting the ambient from ups like that drops down and gets on those walls. The later you wait, like if you shoot here at night, it looks even better. So
Oh,
I would love to have seen this shot at night. And like these water fountains, like you see those lights on the in the, like reflecting pool, they shoot
yeah.
up, and like the bokeh from those looks amazing at night. Um,
Oh,
so I'd want to see this shot. Move the light to the camera right instead of camera left. Um, Zoom in and shoot it a little bit later, and then this image would be amazing.
good. Yeah.
Well, I think that does it. We are we have spent a little over 3 hours on this. I kind of planned for this to be like an hour and a half, and now 3 hours later.
Yeah, we almost got 20 photos. Like,
Yeah,
that's a
I,
lot.
I, I was expecting like when I first posted this, I think I got like 2 or 3 photos, and then you got
Same.
like 2 or 3 photos sent to you, and I was just like, oh, well, I don't know if we're gonna have enough. But then all of a sudden, we got a bunch, and it's
Because I hacked up and I wrote the wrong thing, and everyone was like,
yeah,
oh shit, it's today. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
yeah,
I can't. I don't know what month it is.
yeah.
I'm
Oh well.
sorry.
Um, I think the idea is I'd like to make this a reoccurring series.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd love to.
I think for the future, either we need to set a time limit per photo, or
Or the
less.
number of photos.
Yeah, or the number of photos probably needs to be like cut in half. Um, yeah, like I enjoyed doing this, but I don't necessarily know like if I'm going to
If other
constantly have like 3 hours to film stuff like this. But I mean, we'll do this again. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and please, like, if you have feedback on how, like, the format, if you'd like to see more of like specific things in this, like, let us
Let us
know. because this really was just the pilot, so like I just kind of winged everything for this and kind of tried my best to make everything flow.
Like a helpful thing for everyone. Like we want this to be a discussion starter because I think there's just not enough of that going on right now.
Yeah.
So we're trying to start that conversation.
And then ideally, we would like to bring more, like a third guest on for these, so it's 3 people talking instead of just Sarah and I.
Us gushing about freaking ephemeral light and foreground elements.
So I don't know when the next one's going to be. Sarah and I will have to talk about it. I don't know if the next one will be just the 2 of us or if there'll be another person on. We'll play it by ear. I don't know if we're going to set this to be a reoccurring date eventually. I was thinking, Mallow, since you seem to be really interested in this, that you might be a good person to have in here. And I just sad only I got turned in for the last 30 minutes. The good news is, this is going to be uploaded like in full. Like if you watch it on Facebook, give it a little bit of time to process, and it'll be here. I've also been recording this. I accidentally forgot to hit record for the first like 20 minutes, so like the introductions and the photos are not in my actual recorded file. But considering we went on for like, now we're 3 hours and 11 minutes total, most of the content's in there, so whoops. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it there. I'm gonna end this stream. Thanks everyone for joining, and
thanks for watching.
Yeah, and if you're watching this in post, like not live, please comment. I'd love to hear your comments as well. So okay.
I also want to put like a small disclaimer, like the feedback that we were giving is just, we want everyone to like get better. Like if some of the things we said you thought were
get good scrubs
anyway, we're only doing it because that's how you get better. You get better by receiving critique and implementing that critique and learning from it, and then just keep going. Also, we're both design school snobs and been through the ringer, so sorry if we were like particularly harsh on some people, but truly it's not coming from like a bad place. We just want to help everyone.
Yeah,
we're
not taking any particular joy from like ripping people apart. That's not what we want to do. And if you felt that way, I'm really sorry, because that's not what we wanted to do. But
we just hope that what the feedback that we gave is constructive and is actionable for you guys. So, also, if you want to like take any of the critique that we gave you guys on your photos and then post a new version of the photo that you submitted, I would love to see that.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
good call, Sarah.
Neil. I know you're watching. Yeah, I would love to see that.
Okay, well, and I think with that, we're going to sign off here.
We hate that pole, Mallow.
Yeah, I hate that fucking pole, Mallow.
It's the middle finger.
Okay, bye, people.